But the officer sitting across from me, who didn't like me, we had some other history, he submitted an anonymous letter to the leadership out there saying, I hit this enlisted guy, and I'm an officer. So there's a barrier there, right? I sat for almost 3 months and finally get a call from the squadron, from the colonel. So I had to report into him, and he said, it's an Article 15. And my option at that point was to accept the Article 15. Was pretty much told by my lawyer, my ADC, and my leadership that if you accept this, you likely will be out of pilot training. You maybe will be put into a different career field in the Air Force. They might just boot you from the Air Force at this point. The other option is you can elect court-martial. So if you elect court-martial, it goes to a military court. So I would either get through that court case and have no charges. I would have been free. But if I'm found guilty, that's a felony. So I'm out of the Air Force and I have a civilian felony. So we left their apartment and my heart was just like exploding for the boys. Still amidst the court-martial going on, I told Bobby, I'm like, what if I just move them to Wisconsin? And just threw it out there in the car with him. And I dropped him off actually at the Dallas airport. And then I had 4 hours alone in the car. And that was like the climax of my anger and everything. Because I'm just so frustrated with God for my own situation, frustrated on behalf of all of these Afghan people who came here, and then the government kind of just dropped in these just terrible situations. But had tears. I was just like banging my car door. I was so frustrated with God, just kind of yelling at him. My routine that I started in college was I kneel at the base of my bed and I pray before I go to sleep. And I'm throwing all of my frustration at God. You can blame God all you want, but like, what do you think his questions back to you would be? And so I had that moment there praying that evening after that trip with Bobby and thinking, well, why is it up to me to save these people? Haven't I given you a community in Spring Valley? Haven't I given you financial security as a young 20-year-old? Why can't you do this yourself? You have the time right now. You have the capacity. And it was like a light switch flipped.
I'm Jack Hannack, and this is Fruits of the Foundry.
Man was created for a purpose, often a greater purpose than he can see in himself. The trials and difficult experiences a man goes through are for his benefit and for that purpose. A dull axe is useless, though an axe being sharpened is a grueling, violent, and uncomfortable process. A sharp axe is undeniable in its purpose. A man with a spirit-filled heart and mind is also undeniable. A kingdom warrior after God's own heart. But how do we get there? God uses trials and fire to shape a man. Life is God's foundry. It's where a man is individually crafted to complete God's mission. Join us as we seek out the fruit forged in God's own foundry.
Well, guys, first interview of the Fruits of the Foundry, and so this is exciting. Jack Hannack is our first guinea pig, so we thank you for that.
Amen.
Yeah, and Jack has become one of our really close friends. We know him as Good Morning God. So in our prayers, he lights up the morning when he starts his prayer, and I swear it's been one of the most uplifting phrases of my life in the last couple of years. And so luckily this morning we got to go do the dam mile. Did a couple of dam miles, I guess. We did the circuit. It was freezing rain. School's canceled. The roads are a little bit better. Maybe some of that.
I didn't think the roads were bad.
The roads weren't bad.
The kids needed a day off.
Yeah, I think so.
An extra day off.
Yeah.
A fifth day off.
Yep. So the kids are excited. It's like Christmas in April.
Yeah.
Easter
So
break.
yeah, I was kind of hoping John would just pull a late April Fool's joke, like spring or school's canceled. Not.
My boys said that. I said that was yesterday. I think we're in the clear.
Yeah. And so a little bit about Jack though. Just you're an amazing young man. I'm getting older than some people now, so that's kind of cool. But Jack came back here to Spring Valley. He's adopted some Afghan boys, which is an impressive story. Look forward to getting into that. Prior to that, he was in the Air Force. Grew up here in Spring Valley, so he's a local boy. So I'm sure he'll get, anybody local listening, you can pick on him a little bit after this, and that'd be all right.
Mm-hmm.
But really, one of the biggest things, I guess, Jack, that's been such a blessing is how, ever since first meeting you, how wonderful you've been to my wife and my boys, and had Eli over, and the boys have their camping party here this last year or whatever, and it just you come on, your personality just shows how much you care about the people around you, and frankly it's magnetic, and so I'm really excited. I know Ald's really excited to have you be the first one here for us to interview.
Yeah.
Especially because
even when he started participating in the mornings with us, just the presence that he brought with him, just super inspiring for us.
Can I say a quick story about this morning? We were at the donut shop, and this would never even cross my mind, but he goes to the girl next to him. He goes, this little girl there, 8 years old. He's like, which donut do you want? And she picks the sprinkled donut.
There were only 2 left. So I bet she wants that one.
I would never even cross my mind to look at this little girl and be like, which donut do you want? Yeah, she wants the sprinkle one. There's only one left. So Jack took the other one.
It was her birthday too.
Just
Yeah.
really.
it was her birthday
They
too.
actually go to church with me.
We should
So I
say,
didn't know her. She maybe doesn't know me, but
There's a new bakery here in town, so
new bakery
Yeah.
right down the
we
street.
had some donuts this morning.
That's our official sponsor.
Yeah.
What's the name of the
Food.
bakery? Sorry, it's not Spring Valley Bakery anymore.
I think it is. I think that's what the sign said.
Yeah,
Is it?
that's what I would say.
Spring Valley
So
Bakery.
we apologize for getting that name
Yeah.
right, but
Super excited though for the bakery to be in town. That's a risky, it's
Small
nerve wracking, small town, right? And so if they wind up listening, or anybody in Spring Valley is listening, the bakery's back.
yeah,
It's
it's been a long-standing. Spring Valley has been known to have
we have
a
good
fantastic
donuts.
bakery,
Good
and everybody's
donuts.
glad to have them.
On their theme song, instead of the boys are back in town, right? It's the bakery's back in town. So
Bakery's
they
back.
we need to get them some music going on downtown Main Street, get everybody there, But
So I want to put some emphasis. I don't know if you kind of blew
blew
it, but
past a lot of it.
really
pretty
just
quick.
listen to this. A 28-year-old father of 5 adopted Afghan boys. Not married.
No, not married. Not yet.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But we'll let you tell your story. But for a young man to take that much responsibility on, and just the adoption process, I'm sure was hard, but what that does for the rest of your life and what a commitment that is just
Correct.
incredible.
Well, because it's not like you didn't have dreams and aspirations
Right.
prior to that, right? You were in the Air Force, and we'll get into all of this, but you're nailing on the head there. Like, it's just impressive. There's a selflessness to that that I don't believe. Well, not I don't believe I wouldn't have had, and that's why one of the reasons I'm excited to get into that, and kind of what wound up leading you up to that point, and just some experiences in your life, and everybody listening has done amazing things that hopefully, as you listen to this podcast, you can look back at your life and really see the way in which God's worked in your guys' own life
Absolutely.
as well, So
But I think we should get into that. If you don't mind telling us
I appreciate that. It's an
early
honor.
life was like.
It's an honor to be here.
Yeah.
Be the first guest.
Yeah.
I remember I think I saw both of you a week apart, and you both told me about the podcast, but I think Dan was first, and we were at the football game in Elmwood at the 10-yard line. And it was very casual. Like, so Jake and I are going to start this podcast. We have you on our list. That was maybe 7 months ago, and now here we are. So appreciate being here.
Yeah. And you've
I'm
supported
excited.
us all along. I mean,
It's been fun.
the mornings, that's why it started, is, kind of the camaraderie and the brotherhood that we've built in the mornings. You've been a big part of that.
Ruck and River.
yeah,
That's
there
how
you
I
go.
refer to it. Ruck and River. A little prayer in between.
Yeah. Mike, what did Mike call it? A plod.
Plotting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
plod, pray, plunge.
That's
Plod,
it.
pray,
plod, pray,
plunge.
plunge. Yeah,
Good alliteration there.
yeah, it is. But
So if you don't mind starting, just tell us what
Sure.
early life was like for you. And
Yeah.
we can go from there.
Grew up right here in Spring Valley. Amazing childhood. We had several different houses here in town. But like all the kids in town, swimming at the pool and riding our bikes around town, just the small town life. But when I was in 5th grade, we moved out to the country, actually right down the road from where John lives now, in an old farmhouse. And so we had the run of the land. Had 2 brothers who we were not, we fought like brothers growing up.
Yeah.
It's
Good
been a blessing
brothers.
to get closer with them now that I'm in my 20s.
Mhm.
And then I have a younger sister as well. And I think, growing up on the farm was great. It was kind of a hobby farm. We had pigs and chickens and turkeys. I think the best purchase my parents probably ever made out there was we had a 4-wheeler. So we put a lot of miles on that thing, just on the field roads. We had an old, if you can picture like a porch swing bench, so without the legs, and we strapped it down to a trailer. And when we'd have friends over, which was just about every weekend in the summers, I think middle school, early high school, once I had my license, I would be gone on the weekends, right? We'd run to wherever. But similar to how our boys do the campfires, we'd have a fire every weekend, and then we'd jump on that 4-wheeler, whether it was daylight or after dark, and we'd just drive the field roads over and over. You could fit a dozen guys on the trailer. So that was growing up. It was great. Spring Valley's great. It's great to be home. Great to be back.
Did you wind up playing sports in high school, or?
I wasn't. I was not a big athlete. And I shouldn't say that. I was a runner and I played basketball. But I was a very scrawny kid until I went to college. So all the way through.
Really? Yeah. Cause heck, you're pretty tall now.
More fit now and taller now. Yes. No, I had like the runner's build and I ran, being in a small town, what's so great is you can just I was just involved in everything.
Were you?
I think if you ask my peers and my classmates, I was the student council kid. That was my biggest thing. I was like leadership camp in the summer and I met a bunch of friends through that. But I also played sports, but it really wasn't until college where I really dove into fitness when I got started with the Air Force.
Started to fill
ROTC,
out and everything like that.
But yes, got bigger and got in the weight room more compared to just running.
Did you have a passion when you were in junior high and high school?
Like I said, I mean, sports, I was in the theater here in town.
Really?
Did plays.
I love
was in church choir, band and choir all the way through. But I think student council was the biggest thing. And did like a leadership camp through high school and met a bunch of friends from other schools, which still kind of defines a lot of who I am now. I have a lot of great friends still from Spring Valley, from high school, a lot of great college friends, but some of my best friends are from this 5-day leadership camp I went to in the summer, actually. And I don't know if you guys maybe don't know any of that, but my 2 best friends both live in St. Paul now, both bought houses. They're about a mile apart, so they see each other all the time. They go to the gym together. But that was my passion, I suppose.
And you would have still been going to school and kind of growing up in the area, rhetoric's changing a little bit, but, go to college, right? You were going to go to be an architect. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So went to the University of Minnesota. So I remember being in 2nd grade and wanting to be a writer. And bless my mother's heart, but she said, there's not a lot of money in writing. And that hit 8-year-old me more than she probably intended. Yeah. And so I shifted to architect, and all the way through I'm like, I'm going to be an architect. So when I enrolled in the U of M, I joined the School of Architecture and did a year of architecture. But I kind of alluded to this earlier, big shift of mindset and heart. I think end of my senior year of high school, going to college, and dove into the Air Force thing. And so throughout freshman year, that really I was miserable in architecture school. It was way more kind of abstract design, creativity focused, less of the math and blueprints like I thought it was. So I ended up switching majors, going into sophomore year with the intent of going into the Air Force and being a pilot at that point.
Where did that come from? Like, was there a talk with a recruiter? Was it amazing Top Gun.
Yeah,
Air
you're not
Force
like
ad.
going from architect to engineer. You're going from architect to Air Force,
Yeah, no, I think the shift, I think in high school, I was very focused on, so I'll say this too, and this is a lot of my childhood and growing up. So so kind of a side note.
Yeah.
My 4 grandparents all grew up here in Spring Valley, and 4 of my great grandparents. So I'm super tied here. My parents met each other in first grade, and they didn't end up dating until senior year, but they went through school together. I mean, the class size here is very small. And I actually, so my 4 grandparents all grew up here, and then of my 8 great grandparents and my 16 great grandparents, is that how that math works out? The year of COVID, I drove around to find all their headstones.
Wow.
So of the 24 of them, the 12 couples, 11 of them are within 25 minutes of right here of town.
Really?
And then the last couple is in Fort Snelling Cemetery.
So
why? He was in World War I.
What prompted that? Like to drive around and find their headstones?
I've just always been into kind of family heritage and lineage, and being the fact that they were all here so close in their story, just on Main Street here. I mean, it's like every other building. It's so-and-so grandpa had a bit like a convenience store here, a law office here, XYZ. Right. So I was just always intrigued, and I knew they were all close. Yeah. And I'm like, if I'm living 20, I better go pay my respects, and that was right before I moved to Oklahoma for the Air Force.
Does any of your family, have any of them done the genealogy and stuff like that, Jack? Or have you?
I'm kind of that person.
Yeah.
I've been the one to
That's cool.
My brother, he's now engaged. His fiance called me probably 2 years ago now. And I think she was coming home for the holidays, and she said, Nate can't answer any of my question of who's who. It was a family reunion or something we were going to. So she got me on the phone, and I walked her through it.
Yeah.
But I say that. So I think in high school, I had this mindset I was going to do the same thing my parents did, my grandparents did. Yeah. Find a high school sweetheart, marry her, go to school, architecture, very stable 9-to-5 career, and come back here and settle down, immediately have kids, right? And I think what shifted that summer of when I graduated and going to college is yes, I love Spring Valley, and it was always kind of end game to end up here, but it's I don't want to go see the world. I want to, live life, probably move away. And it's so if the sky's the limit, what, in my mind, what's the coolest career field? What do I want my legacy to be when I have grandkids who are coming to my gravesite, right? And that's where the idea of being a pilot, I think, kind of entered my brain, is just the legacy, and it's how cool that is. And it's a glorified career.
So that was after high school into college.
Yeah, really my freshman year.
Early 20s.
Yes. Yeah. And so you were enlisted Army. Yeah. I went through the ROTC program, Reserved Officer Training Corps program at the U of M. So that it's 4 years. It's the entire time you're in school, and you're training that entire time. You do a boot camp, a field training. I was telling John about it this morning, between sophomore and junior year. It's only a few weeks in the summer, but you're training that entire time to then go into the.
And the pilot training, number one, you have to have perfect hair. You have to have a sweet mustache. So just getting on the
I had them. Yeah, we all had the mustaches.
Yeah. But it's super. I have really good friends that are pilots, and it's an awesome, very intriguing lifestyle for a young man.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
You definitely
taxpayer money like nobody's business.
Correct. And now I'm sitting here not a pilot. So I definitely blew some tax dollars.
Well, and it don't matter which way you stand on this whole Iranian thing, but them boys are getting some stuff done over there. I mean, you know what I mean?
It's correct.
I don't care where, but man, it's the boys we got flying them jets, they're
sending everyone. Yeah. I'm still in touch with a lot of the buddies. We're in group chats, and my better friends, right? I'm texting kind of one-on-one, are you leaving? When are you leaving? And so, some of them have been able to disclose information. Others stay more quiet. Mm-hmm. But just 2 days ago, my buddy, he flies the KC-46, so refueler.
Really?
And he's living on MREs right now. Meals ready to eat, and they're going through it over there.
It's very high demand, great. And I know you as a person. I know how intellectual you are and how purposeful you are, and you would have done very, very well, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that.
So through that
It's fun
training process, you joined that Air Force, got outside ROTC program, correct?
Yes.
How
correct.
old were
Got a
you in that
slot.
time frame?
Got a pilot slot.
Yeah.
So college is 18 to 22. I was awarded a pilot slot my senior year of college, so 22.
Really?
And then moved to Oklahoma when I was 23 to start pilot training.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know what I was going to say. Well, to your point of just the thing about being a pilot is, and you guys talk about the F's, faith, fitness, family, finance. You tie everything together. You have to be physically fit, especially if you're going to be flying a fighter jet.
Right.
And you have to be intellectual. You have to, I mean, it's, and that's what I loved about the ROTC program right from the get-go, is it encompassed kind of every aspect of my life.
Yeah.
Because it was
I
a
know
job.
some guys that didn't make it. And it's surprising
it's a revolving
when you hear
door.
like they didn't make it. I mean, because they're like so on top of everything in their life.
Sure.
They put
so
the
it's a
word
really-
intellectual, I think, on the board, and I can't read that word, so
Right.
I ought to.
You would have fit in well in the infantry. You would have done well.
Seawall, run through wall. So luckily we got guys like Jack and other.
It's a special breed that it
Yeah.
takes to be an Air Force pilot.
Well, it really comes down to your discipline, your grit. And if you don't have you'll figure it out as long as you are disciplined. And that's what they would tell us starting freshman year. So if you have the discipline, you stick with it and you work hard enough, you'll get through it.
Yeah.
But it was, the program was a revolving door is maybe painting that in a negative light, but there are a lot of people who come in and then for whatever reasons they leave, and medical too.
Yeah.
A lot of friends I just visited, we were actually roommates 1 year, but he went all the way through the program senior year, got a concussion, and the Air Force gave him the boot his whole life. I mean,
Man,
I don't remember what came of his scholarship, but yeah, then he's entering the civilian world. So quite a bummer.
yeah.
So got a pilot slot. Did you start training as a pilot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then where did deployment fall into that?
So, okay. So the timeline, I graduated in COVID spring. So I didn't have a real graduation. The pipeline for pilot training was very backed up. So they actually had us wait 364 days before we actually showed up on our first duty station. So we commissioned, I was an officer, but I didn't go on active duty for an entire year.
Yeah.
Once you hit that year mark, the government is required to pay you.
Yeah.
So they kind of stretched it as long as they could. So I sat in Minneapolis for an extra year, moved to Oklahoma. Then it was Vance Air Force Base, May of 2021. Started training that summer. For Air Force pilots, you do an initial flight training in Pueblo, Colorado for a month. So I did that June, July. You get about 30 hours. A lot of great memories from that, but it was a grind. And then we returned to Oklahoma, and you're given a class date for UPT, so undergraduate pilot training. And that's really the bulk of your training. So UPT, I think it used to be, typically it was about a year. And then they were trying to make the program more efficient. So by the time my class came through, they were trying to crank us out in like 6 months. But everyone, once we got back to Oklahoma, you're sitting around waiting for a date, your class date. And so we got back to Oklahoma. My class date wasn't until January, and the Afghanistan withdrawal took place August of 2021. So I had just gotten back to Oklahoma, kind of was seeing it on the news, right? Not really thinking it pertained to me. And a message went out to all of us officers, trainees waiting for our date, class date, and just said, we will be sending 24 of you to New Mexico. Everyone needs to be getting ready, XYZ. So there are about 400 people in the group chat, but by the time you had people whose class dates were starting in the fall and those who maybe didn't have all their vaccines or whatever,
right.
The list got down to like 40 real fast.
Yeah.
And so that was a Friday. I ended up getting called into a room. We had some guys that just hadn't seen the message, didn't show up. And there were about 30 of us in the room, and they picked 24 of us, and they're like, all right, you're leaving Sunday night. So we had 48-hour notice.
That's the definition of voluntold.
Correct. That's the military. And we were sitting there like, well, this stinks, but we're like, no, this is what we signed up for.
Yeah.
You know, I remember my buddy Will, he's like, this is why I joined the Air Force. He's like, I'm going.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go. And so we had that weekend to just pack, and it was chaos. And so I was deployed to New Mexico. So the United States had 8 refugee camps to process the Afghan refugees that were coming over. So our allies.
We're at New Mexico.
It was Holloman Air Force Base in Alamogordo. It's about an hour east of Las Cruces.
Yeah.
Right in between the mountain ranges. Where White Sands Missile Range is.
Okay.
It's right
We
there.
spent some time down there, like Truth or Consequences.
Yes.
I think it was Camp Williams
Yes.
down there. Yeah.
The speed limit, I think, is like 80, 85 to go through there.
Yeah, Mom lived down there, and one of the Truth and Consequences, there's a lake there.
White
yeah,
Sands.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yep. So they were the 8 camps, and so they were just kind of pulling people. Army, Air Force, to facilitate these camps because it happened like that. Like we got to be out of Afghanistan. We got like 3 weeks notice, right, with the Taliban. I think they said September 1st. So they're just throwing these people on airplanes and getting them out.
And this was in August.
August.
And
2021.
were they coming directly there?
So they, and I can speak to my boys' story, but a lot of them, they had to get them out of Kabul.
Yeah.
Insane situation there, if you remember watching the news. So they were boarding C-17s mostly, I think C-130s too. Took them to, my boys went to Qatar first and were there for 1 evening. And then they went to Germany. And from my understanding is everyone was processed through Germany. Ramstein just kind of took everyone and did immediate kind of background checks. And then they were on a plane from Germany to Virginia. And then from Virginia, they were dispersed across the country to these 8 camps, New Mexico being one of them. And Fort McCoy in Wisconsin actually had one too.
I remember
so
that.
my boys' cousins actually went through the Wisconsin camp.
If anybody's interested in more on that stuff too, Chad Robichaux's interpreter.
Yeah.
I can't think of Aziz. Yeah.
Saving Aziz.
Saving Aziz. Like, dive into that if anybody wants to know more and the craziness that went on, which Jack will get into some of that in his story here, but just really not a lot of common sense.
That's a great one. And then, or Chad Robichaud, because he has a lot out there. There's a documentary called Escape from Kabul.
Mm-hmm.
It's about an hour and a half. And that is specifically just what was going on at the airport. 13 service members, I think, were killed. That will kind of rock you a little bit to see what these people went through. It was just crazy.
Just unbelievable,
unbelievable.
You know? Yeah.
Yep.
Which,
I feel bad for the Afghanis that got sent to Fort McCoy.
Right? It got cold.
Yeah.
It got cold in the fall.
Not that, Afghanistan can get cold too, but.
And in New Mexico, these boys, everyone who was there, they were in tents and they had air conditioning, no heating. Mm-hmm. It would get cool at night, but in Fort McCoy, they were in buildings.
Yeah.
I think old barracks probably.
Yeah. The thing is through, that's, the Foundry, right? That's what we're talking about. And so the thing is there's been some amazing fruits that have come from that as far as I'm concerned. And the boys, being in all of our boys' lives and all that stuff. And so, which we'll get into more, but it's just something, through there's always some beauty in difficult situations. And unfortunately there was a lot of things I think we all disagree with all of that, but, and, but Jack, so they, in New Mexico,
you're down there at this point and
yes.
How did you meet them? I guess.
Did you meet? Sure. Yeah. So we're sent to New Mexico. We show up. Everything is just being built from the ground up at that point.
Are you building it? Like
other people were.
Yeah,
that was not my role, but yes. So we got there. 2 days ahead of the first airplane of
no way.
And the people, there were people that were part of the operation because it's an Air Force base with other training missions, right?
Yeah.
They're flying the F-16 and whatnot. There's also a drones out of Holloman. But those who were there for the operation, there were people who were maybe there a few days before us, but it was just middle of the desert, and they had civilian contractors, right, to help build the structures, but the Air Force was doing a lot of it too. And so really it was just pitching 24 big white tents out in the desert, and everything was brought in, food, water, I mean, everything, cots for them to sleep on. And so, yes, some of the guys, I went down with a group of 24 of us, and some of them, their job was just putting up these tents. Yeah. And the contractors would build the steel structures and the tents, but then each family got like a room built out of plywood, right? So that's what some of my peers were doing. I was very fortunate. I had a very cool role. It was going to take, so the Air Force themselves and these contractors, they were supplying these people with the refugees with a cot, and then a small toiletry bag with, I think, a razor, a small bar of soap, maybe deodorant. And then every refugee got a blanket. I don't even know if they got a pillow. And that was it. Mm-hmm. And so,
did they bring anything with them?
That's a good point. So most of these people, not really. They might have one backpack or like 2 bags for the entire family. Like that's it. So it's the clothes they're wearing. They maybe have 1 extra pair of clothes. All these kids are showing up without shoes. I mean, they're in sandals, right? Flip-flops. None of them, like hardly any of them had tennis shoes. So,
and when they're, I guess, sorry to go back a little bit. When they were sending them, did they keep them as a family?
Oh yeah.
They were very diligent about that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So,
did they give you an idea how many were going to be coming, numbers wise?
Yeah, but the number was constantly changing. So I think Holloman ended up processing 6,000, but there was a time across these 8 camps, like which camps can accept, as they're going up. So there were talks that I think that Holloman was going to maybe have 10,000 at one point, but we maxed out at 6,000. Yeah. So they came here with very little, and the Red Cross and Salvation Army were going to be coming, but it was several weeks until they were going to arrive, and then it was going to take them some time to like set up shop, right? Yeah. But we had people in, again, like 48 hours after I got there, we had planes coming in of people.
Really?
A lot of families, and then a lot of like just single males. So people, young guys who served, they came alone. Yeah. Maybe they had a wife that stayed, but if you had a wife and kids, if you could get them to Kabul and get them on an airplane, they came with you. So we had a lot of families in the Middle East. They have big families. So a lot of families with 6, 7, 8, 9 kids. And, so while we were waiting for the Red Cross and Salvation Army there, and I've looked into this, and I wish I could tell you what, law or statute it is, but the military is, what I was told, not allowed to take goods from civilians and give them to civilians. Right. Are you familiar with that? Yeah. The military can accept goods if it's for airmen. So when people send like care packages overseas, right, you hear about that. Or if if the government's paying for it, you can give it to civilians. But however the finances or whatever was working for the operation, we were very much going to be reliant on the Red Cross and Salvation Army to basically provide clothing and blankets, all kinds of things, hygiene products, right, for these people. But again, it was going to take a few weeks. So there was one, we call them the shirt in the Air Force, the first sergeant. Their entire mission, it's a senior enlisted person, and their mission is the people. They just look out for the people. So he he took on the immediate needs of the people, because it was a very gray area. We couldn't really, as Air Force members, be distributing things, but there was a need for some of these people, right? So he said, we can't set up a formal or official team to be passing stuff out, but he said, I'm going to be doing that. And so we had the spouses on base. There's a spouse organization on most bases, right? They were getting donations just from the local area, and they had a room within the in-processing building. So a plane would land, we'd process them through, everyone get like a wristband, right? And then they would board buses to go out to the camp. We called it the village. And so the spouses, they would just identify, oh, that kid doesn't have shoes. That kid needs a sweatshirt. Or they would just start kind of passing stuff out willy-nilly as they could. Women would need to change the diapers of their kid. I mean, they had nothing. And so the shirt kind of just pulled me aside. He's like, I'm doing this. You seem like I was just gung-ho on this whole thing. Like I wanted to meet the people. I just kind of had that I guess, that character that I brought into the mission. So I was originally tasked at the in-processing building, but then he kind of gave me access, and he's like, I'll feed you information, and you get with the spouses and talk with them. And so my role was kind of just immediate needs, kind of under the radar, just meeting people in the village and passing stuff out. So one of the first things I did was diapers, wipes, and formula. So I would walk around. No one, very few of them spoke English. So it's just like tapping on the tarp and trying to figure out like who has infants. And I would write down everyone, they had like numbers on each of the doors. So I'd write down the room and then the infant. And then every morning I'd just make my rounds and I'd pass out like 2 diapers and wipes and formula. And that's really all we had at that point until the Red Cross showed up. So
what was the general like attitude from the refugees? Were they in dire need, or did they kind of have what they needed to sustain them? Were they
I would say
fearful?
I would say it was dire need.
Yeah. A lot of them probably scared.
Yeah.
Unsure.
And so again, speaking to my boys' situation, so they, when this happened, a lot of our allies, these guys, they were working. They were on a base, not near their family. And so the idea was the documentary, and Chad will talk about this too, but they were given notification, like, if come to the airport, we will extract you. If you can get your wife and kids here, they can come with you if you have documentation to prove it. And it was like that. And so families who were living an hour out of Kabul or several hours, like they just dropped everything, hopped in a car, really didn't say goodbye, got to Kabul, and then they just sat and waited until that we could get them inside the airport, get on a plane and go, and that was it.
That wasn't easy either, because there was these different checkpoints that were going on.
It was chaos,
dangerous.
And so
a lot
of the chaos was, the idea is, America's leaving, Taliban's taken over. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the chaos and the people that were at the airport were not our allies. They're just people who wanted a ticket to America, and you can't blame them. Yeah. But the people who had served, and I know some of the Afghans I'm in touch with went through those crowds and held up their documents and got pulled over the fence. And again, the documentary will show all of this, but my boys were on a bus, and that brought them through a back gate, basically, to get them.
And they came as a family.
They came as a family.
But some...
Yeah. And how much notice did they get as a family? Was it like, hey, this is the plan, like next week, America, you know what I mean? September 1st is the new date. Like, how much time did they have to prepare?
I don't think they knew. Again, I think it was we're negotiating. The U.S. is negotiating with the Taliban, and eventually, I think they came up with September 1 as the date. Like, you need your people out of here by then. So as many as these Afghans that you want to take, your allies, you can go for it. But September 1st, you got to be out of here. So when they heard that, they all just hustled the airport, because they didn't know. They didn't know how many airplanes would be leaving, and we left a lot of people
stuff
there. A lot of stuff, and a lot of allies, never made it. So
that's a Z story. But
yeah.
So you're in New Mexico. These refugees are coming in. How did you meet?
I didn't answer your question. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
So where I feel like a lot of the airmen and the soldiers, right? We're all coexisting. It's us, the contractors, the Afghans. We're all coexisting out in this village, and there's construction equipment moving and kids running around and whatever. But I was like in the tents with the people, meeting the immediate needs. So I immediately just got kind of in that to the next level, I guess, with these people. Immediately got to know them. And so my family, the boys, again, they didn't speak English. So I didn't know who were siblings or what. So the 3 youngest boys, and really the 4 youngest, I should say.
How old are they at this time?
7 to 13.
Okay.
Yeah. 7 to 13.
Yeah. And how old are they?
Well, 7 to 15 now. Now this was 5 years ago. So now the youngest is 12 and the oldest is 20.
Yeah.
They would just, every day I would take a break and go play soccer in this dirt soccer field. There's like 2 nets that are falling apart, and I play soccer with the kids.
Yeah.
And so the younger boys would come with me every day. And one of the boys had glasses.
Yeah.
Dark glasses. And one night when I was making my rounds, well, I should back up. I was doing diaper rounds one morning, and Salamadin, who is Eli's age, he just was intrigued by what I was doing and just followed me around for over an hour, just through all the hallways.
Mm-hmm.
He had an apple in hand and he wouldn't get
I
close
could
enough
see
to
that.
see, but just kind of watching me, just kind of too cool for school. You know what I mean? I would try to engage with him and then he would be too cool for me. And finally I got his name out of him. So that night I went and tapped on they had a tarp for like a door. I tapped on the tarp and he came out with his mom and I had a pair of, he had just these raggedy old shoes that didn't fit him. So I brought him tennis shoes and socks and I think a couple shirts or whatever as a thank you for helping me with the diaper rounds. And he's still a good buddy of mine. His name is Wahid, very similar to Aziz. He was a translator. So he spoke fluent English. Great guy. I can't say enough good things, but he's my age. He has a wife and several kids now, and he lives here in the States. He came over and translated, and the boy's mom came out, and she, of course, said yes, like, you can give him these gifts. So he's all excited, like on the floor, trying to put these shoes on, had never tied shoes before. And she brings out Deuce Muhammad with his eyes. And I hadn't seen him without glasses on. So I've been playing soccer with him and all these boys, and I didn't know they were brothers. And then Bismillah comes on to remind me, I'm like, oh my God, what? You guys are all brothers. That's crazy. And she was just so desperate to get him help. And so she gives me his folder of paperwork. He had seen an optometrist like several months prior in Pakistan, actually. And his eyes were just bloodshot red. I mean, just my eyes were watering just from like looking into his eyes, and he was squinting from the lights in the tent. And so the next day I came back. He also had several bottles of like various eye drops, and they were all bone dry. They're all empty. And she's like, she wanted to get him more. So I went back the next morning and took him and their father to the medical tent. And then after that point, those 4 boys, the 5 boys really, they would find me every day. And we would play soccer or play games. And there was a group of like 24 boys that were kind of like my crew. And they were amongst that, that group of boys.
Did Deuce have an infection or what was it?
Me?
No, Deuce. His
Oh,
eyes.
Deuce. Infection. I think I said affection.
Sorry.
But I had affection for boys.
Sorry,
that kind of came later. But
yeah.
he had a lot going on. He got hit at one point. He also had an infection they thought was like from dust. So he has scarring on one of his eyes.
Really?
Yeah. He's a trooper.
And how old was he when this was happening?
13.
Okay.
Is when I met him.
I did not know that.
Now he's a senior.
Yeah.
Well, and he's tough as nails.
So he's
too.
good. Yeah. So the prognosis, how they diagnose it. So once we were here and I moved them up to Spring Valley, and we can get at that point. He's almost legally blind in one eye.
Oh,
he would
really?
need like a transplant. Like that's the only thing that the medical world could do for him. When you have infection as a kid, when you're growing and developing in your eyes, if you're not using your eyeball, this is like people with lazy eyes, they'll get patches.
Yep.
That the connection between your eye and your brain, it has to develop. And so he never had that because he had these eye problems.
So did he have them for a while, even prior to?
Oh yeah, for years. And then it just got like, and then I think he needed glasses. Like he just had he needed a prescription. Didn't have glasses for the longest time. And then it was the infection. And then he got hit in an eye, and he just had a lot going on.
I think, I just asked that because I think there's, it's so easy to, we're just so blessed here in America, and it's easy, or in a lot of the modern world, to take for granted.
I mean, he probably would have been blind by now if something didn't happen.
Him?
Yeah.
In his left eye. Yeah. So he's in glasses now.
Yeah. And I did not know that. Like I've seen him in glasses, but you watch him in sports and
he played all the sports.
Correct. Correct.
I would not know that.
Yeah, football was more because you have to be able to see
right.
the distance, right? And so we tried like goggles. He didn't like them. But wrestling, when you're right there on the mat, he just takes them off, and it's just this other figure, this other form.
Because he's dominant.
He makes it work.
He does make it work. He's tough as nails.
You can find the quarterback from that defensive end
for
position.
sure too.
So do you think the eye problems led you to be closer to that family in particular?
Yeah, I think. I mean, there's a lot on the boys. So they were on the second plane that came in to the village. So they were in the first billeting tent, we called it. And I was there for just under a month. So not a long time. And when I was there were maybe 3,000 people that came in. But again, they were amongst the first like 300. So this crew of like 24 boys, and their tent was right by the soccer field and right on the kind of the main drag. So when I'm walking and doing deliveries and stuff, they're just finding me. And so it was a lot on them. Like because they were bored. I mean, these kids are just running around with nothing to do.
Yeah.
And so here comes Jack. Like I always had something, you know, I always had a deck of cards or we did bubbles one time, chalk, like sidewalk chalk. And I would always, stop and play soccer with them.
So where did the thought of adoption, like where did that start?
That came much later, but we can talk up to it if that works.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So they, so I was there for a month, ended up leaving, and we can maybe circle back to my court martial.
Yeah.
So I actually got sent back to Oklahoma early because I had a court martial.
Okay, that was, so you're there.
That was there.
That was there.
Okay.
This is all in a year.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because this is...
I thought that was after you had left there, but anyway, so
I can jump into all of it. So we're in the refugee camp, and just for the sake of time, I took another boy who had stomach problems. He came up to me crying, took him to the medical tent, and there's these two other Air Force soldiers who were sitting there. I knew connection with both of them. One was enlisted, who I actually was buddies with. We had worked together. He actually did diaper deliveries with me. Really good guy, just very like committed to the mission. And the other guy was an officer from Oklahoma. And they're sitting there and they immediately just start picking on this kid. He doesn't speak English.
Yeah.
But they're like, he's faking it. We just saw that same kid screwing around. He's like, why are you picking favorites? Why are you bringing him here? He doesn't need medicine. Just send him back. Just like, where's this coming from? So they were sitting there enjoying like their dinner. They were on like their 15-minute break. They were doing whatever else. And it was mostly coming from the other officer. But so we're sitting there. I'm going back and forth with them a little bit. I'm like, what are you? Why? You know, just kind of arguing with them. And we were all sleep deprived and hungry. And, you know, we were just stressed. I mean, stress was high. But I got the kid some Pedialyte. We stood up to walk away, and I stepped over, as I was stepping over the cot that the enlisted guy was sitting on, I took the palm of my hand, I just pushed his head. I said, be nice to my kids. And I kind of said just like that, like, be nice to my kids. Half joking, half serious. But the officer sitting across from me, who didn't like me, we had some other history, he submitted an anonymous letter to the leadership out there saying, I hit this enlisted guy, and I'm an officer. So there's a barrier there, right? So opened an investigation up. I got called in and sat down, read my Miranda rights, and given a form saying, you know, I want to speak to a lawyer. I'm willing to give a statement, whatever. And that really kind of was the catalyst that started everything, right? So ended up saying I wanted a lawyer, and they carried out an investigation as best as they could out there. Sent me packing.
Just to pause a second.
Yeah, please.
I'm assuming you had some sort of leadership.
Well,
that was, you know, there's a chain of command in the military.
Oh, yeah.
They came right to you. They didn't go to your leadership.
They notified, again, it was all really funky. They notified my leadership back in Oklahoma, because that's who within the Air Force, that's my hierarchy. Yeah. I was a second lieutenant. You know, I was brand new on active duty.
Great.
It was 24 second lieutenants and one captain came with us. He was a supervisor. I never saw him.
Okay.
Great guy. This captain had my back through the whole thing. I get called in by a different shirt. There were two shirts, two of these first sergeants. One who I was working with and close with, and then the other one. And he sat me down, and we don't need to get too into that, but that meeting did not go well. He was very much like an enlisted guy looking out for his enlisted airmen. Can't blame him. But basically gave me this form, and I said, I don't feel informed enough. Like, can I bring this back to you? So he let me go, and by the grace of God, I ran into the captain that was with us in the hallway. Yeah. I hadn't seen him I seen him like a couple times in 3 weeks out there. I just so happened to run into him in the hallway. And at that point, I'm like about to lose it. And so he took me outside. Tears came. I was like, my whole life and career is falling apart. Like if you get disciplined your first 100 days on active duty, I could have been out of the Air Force. And that's kind of what happened. But so he's like, let's slow down. You know, you want to speak to a lawyer.
Yeah.
Air Defense Council, you know, the military will provide one. So I couldn't get him on the phone, finally got him on the phone. But I ended up staying for another, I think, week and then got sent back to Oklahoma.
And what they're suggesting at this time, is that an Article 15? That's what they're charging with.
So I wasn't charged with anything immediately because the investigation was ongoing. So I got back to Oklahoma a week later, went and spoke to my leadership, the first sergeant at my base, whose office is attached to like our squadron commander, who's a colonel, right? Kind of, you don't speak to him unless you're getting an award or you're in big trouble, right? So that first sergeant sat me down and he said, I didn't know how that conversation was going to go. I said, I'm sure they're hearing everything from the first sergeant and Hallman. I thought I was going to be kind of reprimanded on the spot. I didn't know what was and I didn't know what the process was for discipline. I'm very familiar now, but he thought, he's like, this is gonna be a letter of counseling, which is the lowest level of discipline. He said in that meeting, it sounds like it was a misunderstanding. And that conversation went so well. By the end of it, I was in his office for maybe 30 minutes. I'm like, wow, they really have my back on this. I'm like, I would like to go back. I said, whenever this wraps up, I would like to go back to Hallman because they knew it was going to be about a 5-month operation. And he didn't sign off on it. He's like, yeah, we'll have to just talk to the colonel. And they were going to let me go back. Well, I ended up waiting. There's so many details with it. It ends up going all the way up the chain. So my colonel basically prefers, makes a recommendation for like this level of discipline, but then it goes up the next level to a general who's sitting at a different base in San Antonio. And for whatever reason, this general, this came across his desk and he had the opposite opinion from my colonel and he jacked it up to an Article 15. So there's many levels between that. It's LOC, LOA, LOR, letter of reprimand, and then Article 15.
And what's Article 15?
And so he ended up issuing an Article 15. So an Article 15.
John asked what an Article 15
Yeah, you answer that.
I'm not I don't know all the details of it, but it would be like a misdemeanor kind of charge.
It would have been a felony actually for me because it was simple assault.
So
I
know
they categorized it.
That's interesting. I know a lot of guys that have Article 15s.
Really? Okay.
I don't know I think the infantry just eats Article 15s for breakfast, but a lot of stupid mistakes. A lot of times there's demotions, things like that, but I don't know of one that has transferred over to like a civilian. And again, there probably is.
I can speak to that a little bit. So
I do know one officer who got an Article 15 and was pretty much kicked out of the military with
higher standards, right, for officers because we're supposed to be leaders. Right. So I sat in Oklahoma from September to December and never got an update of what the actual charge was, like what level it was going to be at. And again, so I'm sitting here from that first conversation with my shirt saying it's just going to be a letter of counseling. And I'm praying literally to go back to New Mexico. It was the best month of it changed my life. I mean, here we are. Yeah. And so I sat for almost 3 months and finally get a call from the squadron, from the colonel. So I had to report into him and he said, it's an Article 15. You're being issued an Article 15 and your options are, I actually had to accept it, from the wing commander. So that's a level above your squadron. So the head of the base basically had to report into him, which is a really big deal. And he issues me an Article 15, issued me the Article 15 on behalf of the general. And my option at that point was to accept the Article 15, was pretty much told by my lawyer, my ADC, and my leadership that if you accept this, you likely will be out of pilot training. You maybe will be put into a different career field in the Air Force. They might just boot you from the Air Force at this point. You're an officer. You've been on active duty for 100 days. You get an Article 15 on your record. Like you're saying, you can't promote XYZ. The other option is you can elect court-martial. So if you've seen Band of Brothers, the main guy, he elects court-martial. He's like, I'm going to challenge this. So if you elect court-martial, it goes to a military court and you either have a judge decide your fate or a panel, essentially a jury of officers. So my peers are judging me. And I think I would have had that. We didn't get to that point, but I think I would have had the option, and I would have had a panel of 6 officers. And so at that point, I'm a defendant, and then the plaintiff sits down, right? You carried a court case. So I would either get through that court case and have no charges. I would have been free. But if I'm found guilty, it's a felony. So I'm out of the Air Force, and I have a civilian felony. Yeah. So can't own firearms. I don't think you can vote. Really? Tough to find a job. Tough to rent an apartment. It would have been catastrophic.
I think that's when you know, like, the evil ones at work, because when common sense kind of goes out the door, in my opinion, like it starts to become like, I mean, just because none of it.
Well, look where it come from. I mean, you were bringing a little boy in need.
Well,
that's right.
And I'm not saying it can't get misinterpreted, but when you watch, it's funny in life when you start to realize that there's spiritual warfare going on. Sure. How you can all of a sudden watch things escalate to situations that they never should have.
Like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm delivering diapers.
Yeah.
No, I'm getting court-martialed.
The one action.
And the other thing is a bunch of young men and women who are in high pressure situations that are, I mean, and I realize when you're in the military and stuff like that, you're held to these standards, but frankly, there's ways to which to deal with it, quickly and in an appropriate way, right? Especially when you're leading and growing people. So anyway,
it is crazy. And like, again, I don't know the details of Article 15. I came home from deployment on leave. There was some things that happened. Some guys got Article 15s. They stayed on deployment. They got moved around. Some lost leadership roles, demoted, different things. But I came back from deployment to a brand new squad of guys.
Sure. And
2 Air Force guys picked me up at the airport that I had no idea who they were. So it changes. Like, things can get way blown out of proportion. And I can see how that situation gets very messy really quick.
Yeah. That's the other phrase. He said, the first sergeant, he said, I think this is a misunderstanding. And he also said, it seems this was blown out of proportion. Yeah. Those are like the 2 phrases that stuck with me. Because, and I've come a long way on this whole thing now, 5 years later. And now it's like, okay. But it was a big deal going through this as a young 23-year-old, start of my career, start of my life. Yeah. Like, that's my reputation. And that's why I joined the Air Force to begin with.
You have plans and goals.
Right? And I want to be a pilot, right?
Yeah.
And so what was I going to say to that? I did wrong. I mean, I did put my hand on this guy, and, when you're going into court, we're looking at the actual elements that have to be met, and it was kind of gray area if it was, but one of the elements is like with malicious intent. Yeah. And again, we were buddies. And so in a court hearing, we would have been able to paint the whole picture of what was my relationship with the officer who submitted the letter and what was my relationship with him. So ultimately, to kind of close out the court-martial story, you do a preliminary hearing, and a judge sits down and reviews all the evidence, and then they make a recommendation to the general, and then the general gets to decide, yep, we're moving this forward or not. Mm-hmm. And we showed up to the preliminary hearing, and
so you chose the court-martial.
I elected court-martial.
Wow.
So I'm happy you put on that. So yes. So I went back and forth. I think I had 72 hours to make that decision. Yeah. It was right before the holidays. I'm happy you said that, John. I was really going back and forth, because, like, what if I do have a felony? I mean, that's my whole life.
Yeah.
But to go down without a fight, I mean, Article 15, and everyone, at least in Oklahoma, is telling me this is kind of crazy, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, you're 23 years old. First time you're experiencing this. It's a lot of.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And so Zoom calls got very big through COVID, like the year prior. So I got my parents, my brother, my other brother couldn't make it, one brother, my godparents, Wyatt and Katie, who Wyatt owns the studio. Yeah. He was in the military, and Katie works in the courthouse, actually. So I'm like, they're perfect to get on the phone, but I was very close to them. And my 2 best friends, the 2 I mentioned in St. Paul. And I told them the whole story. It took me like an hour. Told them the whole story, caught them up to speed. They knew like something was going on. And I said, like, what do I do? And all of them, bless their hearts, they were a little wishy-washy with their advice. Like, it's really, but at the very end of the call, my younger brother finally spoke up, and he said, I know you, and to think you're going to lose your entire career and not at least get to speak up. So he was the only one who kind of said, you need to go the court-martial route.
So much wisdom in that.
And I think my gut was already leaning in that way, but to hear somebody in that close network say that to me, I hung up the phone and I'm like, Nate's right. I got to do this.
Yeah.
So,
and especially when it's a brother who,
knows
you've
you
been
well.
beating up your whole life.
Correct.
Has
correct.
that kind
He's
of
like,
wisdom.
give me advice.
Yeah.
So anyways, we're in that preliminary hearing. Then this is February now. So 5 months after the incident. And there's only two pieces of evidence. It's the anonymous letter from this other officer who they had to figure out who it was. The what is she called? The prosecutor, the other lawyer, who's also Air Force. And then
I'm sorry, but that anonymous letter piece bothers me, like from the start.
Well, there's more to that. We can talk offline on that. But the enlisted guy who I pushed, they then brought him in. He got a paper too to leave a statement, or he could get a lawyer, basically to charge me, push charges. And he just left a statement, and you could read a statement, and it said, he didn't mean out of harm. On a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 1. Those are the only two pieces of evidence. So the prosecutor
evil one
found the other officer wasn't willing to put him on the stand. And what she said was due to character flaws.
Oh,
she was not willing to put him on the stand. And that's kind of where the other history from our lives in Oklahoma came in, some other things. So that's one witness. And the enlisted guy, he stopped picking up the phone. Yeah. She was trying to call him to say like, whatever. He's like, I don't want it to go there. So there was no evidence. Yeah. So this judge who's doing the preliminary hearing, she wrote out, she said, yes, the actions weren't great, but she said this level of discipline does not match the action, basically. Right. I mean, she worded it better. And so that's her recommendation to the general. So then the general sat on it from February to May.
No.
Nice.
And he was retiring in the summer. So we're like, it has to come at some point. He had 180 days.
You are on the back.
I think he waited 170 days. So I'm sitting waiting for all my friends are starting training. So my class date obviously got pushed back. So I just had what they call a casual job and working as a scheduler on base, which by the way, was awesome because I had firsthand look at pilot training. I was sitting there doing the schedule, but I got pretty close with some of the instructors, the trainers. Okay. And again, in pilot training, there's a pretty big line in the Air Force between instructors and students, but they would step to fly and these instructors would pat me on the back or give me kind of a equivalent push. Right. And I'm like, if this was assault in New Mexico, I'm getting assaulted on a daily basis. Yeah. And who I'm still I shouldn't say I'm still very close. We were close. She was essentially my boss on the flight line. When she heard about all of this later on, she pulled me into her office just to talk about it. She said, I didn't know you were going through all this. Everyone thought that I didn't take the vaccine. So there were a lot of officers, pilots especially, who didn't want the COVID vaccine. And they wouldn't allow them to start training. Yeah. And now by the way, we've back paid all those guys. Wow. But so that's kind of what everyone thought was why Jack Hannack wasn't doing training. So she pulled me off. She's like, did it bother you? And we would, we kind of pushed you into fly. I'm like, that's just the Air Force. And I'm like, and we're both officers. It was
when I was assaulting you, did it bother you?
I just appreciated that she acknowledged that because it was in every time they would do it. Because I sat right by the door. So every time they'd leave, they're like, whatever, make a comment to me. So ultimately the general decided to not go through with the court-martial. I essentially called his bluff, dropped it, and I walked away with an LOR. He went the next level down, which it was still unfortunate, was on my record. But I think my squadron commander or wing commander had the ability to, after a year, they could wipe it. And so they would have done that. So then I started pilot training and
that's cool.
Wow.
I'd love to jump into some more of that kind of pilot training and maybe get into some of the maybe some emotion you experienced in there, but might be a good time for a quick break.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Hey, Spring Valley, guess what? The bakery's back, and it's better than ever. Get your fresh cake and raised donuts, classic glazed, filled long johns, Persians, and way too many flavors to count. Cake donuts are just $1 each. Grab 6, you only pay for 5. Grab a dozen, you pay for 10. Boom, it's free donuts, basically. We're also baking bread right here in-house. Whole wheat, cracked wheat, and that old school graham loaf. And here's the best part, no tax on the bread. Why? Because Wisconsin law doesn't tax anything without added sugar in the dough. The donuts? Yeah, they're definitely getting taxed. Believe me though, they're worth every penny. We're open Tuesday through Saturday, 7 to 11 a.m., so swing by and be the office hero. Nothing beats walking in with a box of fresh, warm donuts for your team. Bark Spring Valley Bakery, where the donuts are sweet and the bread stays untaxed. See you soon.
Sounds good. We're back from the break here. It's always fun listening to the stories offline and stuff. Right. It's you always wonder how that is. You listen to a lot of different podcasts, right? This is our first one, and they talk about the great conversations, and it's no joke. It's been great conversations this morning, and then great conversations offline here, and so we kind of ended there with everything kind of getting cleared up, Jack. But so what does that mean? You're 23 years old. I would like to start with this though. For all you young men that are out there and women, when you graduate high school, at least I did. I had this image. I looked out and there was a bunch of late 30s, 40, 50-year-old people, and they've got a house and they've got some cars and their life's put together and everything's kind of structured, which our lives, I think, now are more structured. It is not that way in your 20s. It's, and I think some people live that life. Maybe there's a few people that it's that way, but don't think that you got to have it all put together, and don't think that everything's got to be perfect, and
not one thing is going to define you. Like I know where you were at with the fear of like going through the court martial and maybe a felony and all that. And I've had things like that in my life, and you think your world is about to fall apart. Yeah. You looking back, you can probably say, that really wasn't the truth. Yeah, it would have had a serious effect on your life. Correct. But where you're at now, we can trap ourselves in this frame of mind that can seem like our world is huge. And I look at things, there was a young man last week that committed suicide here locally because, he had some bad things happen to him, but that didn't define him. And as young men and women, we can trap ourselves in this mind that it's all come to an end. You were facing a similar battle.
Yeah. And hopefully you can understand that you're in the Foundry. You're being honed and sharpened to do much greater things. Mm-hmm. If the greatest thing that you do is at 22, 23, 25, 28 years old, if that's the greatest thing you do, well, then, man, you wound up not allowing God to continue to work in your life, because it's those experiences that you just continue to build on. It's the foundation that you continue to build on, and which I think is what we're going to hear. Well, what we're going to hear in this story. Frankly, coming through a lot of those, and I'm interested to hear like the emotional struggle and just the next stages. But I think you're doing way greater things right now than anything in any airport pilot. In my mind, not that they ain't doing great things, but for your life, it all led to some great things. So Jack, I'll let you kind of pick it back up to kind of the court case kind of ended. That's clearing up.
Wrapped up. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think to you, both of your points of being in the Foundry and what are the fruits from it. A lot of the things I am doing now and the successes and the footprint items, right, in my life, they came from that, the struggles of that, the confidence that I built throughout that, and the conviction and the faith, the relationship with God. I mentioned when I ran into that captain in the hallway. So he took me outside and we're standing like in the landscaped rocks, and I was in tears. And then I got in my car and drove to the biggest parking lot I could find on base, where I hope that, nobody else was around, and called my father, my dad.
Yeah.
Like, who else do you call?
Right.
and just said, I think I just rambled. Like, I pushed a kid, but now they're talking like it could be a felony or a charge, and I need to call a lawyer. Like, what do I do? And bless my daddy, tried to support me as much as he could, but he's sitting up here in Wisconsin, not familiar with the Air Force, not familiar with the civilian legal process when you screw up that bad, but definitely not familiar with the military process. And I remember just getting to a point in that conversation. I'm like, he's not helping. Like, this is not who I need to be talking to right now. And I hung up with him, and I had a moment of, nobody's coming to save me. Yeah. Like, nobody is coming to save me. Nobody in my life is going to be able to save me from this. Right. And that was the first moment, I think, in life where I had that hit. And I'm going to have to do this myself and do this with God. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have to pray, and I'm going to have to just dig my feet in. And it was a year-long battle before I was starting. 14 months later was when I finally started pilot training. I got back into training. But I think that idea of just nobody's coming to save you.
Yeah.
And sometimes the only person you can turn to, the only thing you can turn to is your faith in God.
Right? Isn't that like it's that kind of that rock, it's not, that rock bottom, that moment in life. It's like the scariest thing and also the most exhilarating thing. All in one, when you actually kind of have this moment where you have to hand it all over, and I think, I imagine, I don't think there's a person listening that hasn't had those moments happen in their lives.
Well, right? And you have a choice to make in those moments. And I'll tell you, I did not make the right choice when a very significant point like that, it was like when my parents got divorced, that was a big thing. I got real hard. Yeah. My heart was angry. Mm-hmm. And I set out to live, my next years from there till about the time I was my mid-20s, just as an angry young man, and hurt a lot of people. And that's not the answer, right?
Right.
So you have a choice to make in that. Are you going to buckle down? Are you going to take ownership of your situation? Are you going to give it to God? And that's where my walk in faith wasn't real strong, and I didn't give it to God. Yeah. And that's where I went wrong. I decided it was on me, and I was going to show people. And I had this idea of who I wanted to become. Mm-hmm. Well, I became those things, but it was a very selfish, and it was a very dark walk. Mm-hmm. So I can feel you sitting in that parking lot, but the decisions you made from that point, you said you leaned on faith.
Well, and I hope as people are listening to this, they can get the imagery and the difference of, your hand is open, right? Your hand's open. You're making a decision to go from, architect to the Air Force, and you're letting it fly, right? You took the leap of faith, and then all of a sudden, what's going to happen when you put yourself out there, or per your story, like you're talking, all of a sudden, but you put yourself out there, and then there's spiritual warfare, and then there's just life that goes on. And are you gonna close that hand and start to control? Are you gonna recess? Because guess what? As far as spiritual warfare goes, the evil one wants you to recess. He does not want you to be out there glorifying God. He does not want you marching forward and leading and fishing for men. That's not what he wants. And so, are you going to start to, you think you're safe by all of a sudden controlling everything or hardening your heart. You think you're protecting it, when what you don't realize is that you're just creating more and more problems and for yourself. And it's very easy to walk into that. But the thing is as he works at different paces and different speeds, right? And so sometimes it takes a few years, and that's where as Christians, I think we have to be humble and walk alongside people as they walk through their faith, because we're not all going to do it perfect, and it's not going to be the next day that we can handle this well. And so, Jack, how did you, I imagine you had to battle with that a bit. Like, there had to be some anger there. There had to be, Yeah.
You mentioned that. Definitely a lot of anger, frustration, pointing finger at others, right? Mm-hmm. Not taking accountability. I'm still shedding some of that. I think the anger in that immediate year, and in the last several years, I think I'm still shedding some of that, the anger. I've come a long way. but there's still space to go in my patience. And I see that in all my relationships with the boys and my family and my friends. But no, in that moment, then going back to Oklahoma, I was angry for a few months. I got back to Oklahoma. I didn't have a lot of weight to lose at that point. I had lost 25 pounds.
Really?
Between initial flight training in Colorado and the deployment. I just wasn't eating.
I'm not even sure you could lose 25 pounds now.
I think I was 185 and I got down to 160.
Really?
So I remember walking into the Walmart, my first grocery trip when I got back to Oklahoma to get some food. And I'm wearing a pair of shorts and they are just like slipping on my waist.
Yeah.
Like my shorts. I'm like, what? I had never experienced. I'm like, I need to be wearing a belt. Yeah. I had lost that much weight. So I was just in a really bad mental, emotional state. Didn't feel like I could rely on anyone. I went from the highest of highs serving in this refugee camp. It was amazing. I just felt like I was doing God's work and I was fulfilled, and it was genuinely fun. It was challenging, but it was fun. And then I'm sitting there alone in Oklahoma. First time in my life, I really was like moved away from home. And that's kind of where the boys entered. So they were in the refugee camp for 4 months. Were originally settled as a family.
So you were back in Oklahoma and then you went back to New Mexico?
I didn't go back.
Okay.
I never went back.
I see.
Because the general kind of held on to things too long. So that was in December when I got the paperwork. My boys were in the camp until New Year's, until January. And I had given my phone number to their oldest brother, he's 25. So he's the sixth boy. Yeah. Said, when you get settled, you let me know where you end up. They had talked that they wanted to go to Texas. I said, I'm in Oklahoma. Like, I'll try to come see you. I said that there were half a dozen families I said that to, and I've seen several of them. I got a family out in California. I got a family up in Seattle who I haven't seen yet. Wahid is out in Carolina, and then several in Texas who I've seen. So they were one of the families. So they were settled in Houston. Really rough apartment complex, rough neighborhood. And I was amidst my court martial. So I'm not in pilot training, not stressed in that facet, like all my buddies are going through training. So on the weekends I was driving the 8 hours to Houston and I was visiting them and took clothes. And so here's this family of 8. They don't speak English. You know, one of the boys needs eye surgery. They just had nothing, no clothes. They need to get into school. They needed jobs. They needed their vaccines before they could get into school. They just had nothing. They didn't know how to operate groceries, didn't have a vehicle, right? So I'm just traveling down there trying to do what I can to set them up, and we're communicating. And one of my best friends, Bobby, who is one of the friends I met at camp and now lives in St. Paul, he came with me on one trip. We loaded down my car with clothes that people in Spring Valley, family friends, had donated that my parents brought to Oklahoma on my birthday. And then Bobby and I drove to Texas to deliver them to these boys and one other family. And we left their apartment and my heart was just like exploding for the boys. Still amidst the court martial going on, I told Bobby, I'm like, what if I just move them to Wisconsin? I just threw it out there in the car with him. And Bobby, being the great friend he is like, that's insane. You can't do that. You could be facing a felony here at any day. Really, it could have happened at any point. Get a phone call, go accept the paperwork or whatever. And I dropped him off actually at the Dallas airport, and then I had 4 hours alone in the car, and that was like the climax of my anger and everything, because I'm just so frustrated with God for my own situation, frustrated on behalf of all of these Afghan people who came here, and then the government kind of just dropped in these just terrible situations. And
I'd like to step in just one second. Just one second. I want to finish hearing what you're saying, but I hope when everybody's listening to this, I don't care where anybody stands on this legal and illegal immigration. But last week we talked on finance and how winning the lottery maybe isn't the blessing in what you think it is. Now, we flew everybody over here, but you would consider it to be basically legal immigration. It doesn't sound like it's all that romantic.
No, it's not.
Can you imagine whether it's legal or illegal, the one thing that needs to go on is we need to learn how to do this stuff well, because we're putting a lot of people in a lot of bad situations that they've got this fantasy or this thought of America and what it should be, and that's what America should be. But maybe we're not putting people in some of the best situations, right? Correct. And frankly, it doesn't always end with the greatest outcome. You can have $1 million and it's not the greatest outcome. And so it's anyway, you're battling. When you were saying how you were battling the emotion of what you were going through and then what you were witnessing these people go through, I just wanted to bring that up.
No, I'm happy you said that.
And what sets you apart, right? You got a community supporting you. You got a family system supporting you. So you even have clothes to bring down to the people you know.
Right.
And so you're on this drive back, this 4-hour drive back, and you're just.
Well, and I'll say to your point, Jake. So their father, he served for 20 years since right after 9/11 happened. He signed up, was security for the CIA for 20 years.
Wow.
So to your point, wherever you land on the immigration topic, like the idea is, he helped us out.
Yeah.
And they were on a hit list over there, right? So that's how they ended up here, the family. So I was in the car. I don't know that there was a lot of emotion. I don't think I had cried since that moment with the captain in September, but had tears. I was just like banging my car door. I was so frustrated with God, just kind of yelling at him. And then I felt super guilty. I got back to my apartment. I felt super guilty. And I was praying. My routine that I started in college was I kneel at the base of my bed and I pray before I go to sleep. Mm-hmm. And I'm throwing all of my frustration at God. But growing up in the faith, in church, and I went to youth group with Pastor Todd that you guys talk about at your church on Wednesday nights. And you can blame God all you want, but like, what do you think his questions back to you would be? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I had that moment there praying that evening after that trip with Bobby and thinking, well, why is it up to me to save these people? Haven't I given you a community in Spring Valley? Haven't I given you financial security as a young 20-year-old? Why can't you do this yourself? You have the time right now. You have the capacity. And it was like a light switch flipped. And so I sat with it for a few days, prayed on it more. I'm working on base then. And I think it was the end of that week, several days later, I called them up and just pitched it to them through a translator, the boy's uncle. And I said, Mike, you guys take some couple days and think about that of moving to Spring Valley. Sorry. I'm like, what if I would just move the family up here and kind of set them up where I know everyone in town. I can get them vehicles. I can get them the medical care. Cause I'm familiar. I'm connected up here. I can get the boys in the school district. And I know people just look out
and
for
they
them.
had the freedom to move wherever
here.
They wanted in the nation. Like they were
at that point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we gave them, we being the United States, the government. I think each person got X amount of dollars. It didn't go super far, but it was given to case working agencies that then went and bought furniture and paid their rent for them. I think for the first 6 months. And they burned through that cash like that, these case working agencies. So they weren't leaving anything. Right. And so pitched it to the family. They came back several days later and we'll do this. We trust you. I'm like, this is insane. I'm 23 years old and this family of 8 is going to trust me, this white Christian guy who they only know from several months ago to move them. But they had nothing to lose. And I bought the house, and several months after making a decision, I think it was 2 months later, bought the house, closed on it. It's right. You can almost see it from this window, and moved them up here together. And then I returned to Oklahoma. I took 2 weeks of leave from the Air Force, got the boys in school, got them jobs, my grandmother furnished the house for them. I mean, everyone in the community just did. I mean, it was incredible.
Isn't it crazy how God works?
And I didn't know how they were going to be receptive here. Yeah. Small Caucasian town. Just putting it out there, but they did. They were just completely accepted from the get-go.
I can still just remember that time because I did not know you.
No.
And I hear this, this is all going on. This is after COVID, and you hear this stuff's going on in Afghanistan and the refugees and stuff. And then all of a sudden, I hear that, it's a small town, right? So gossip spreads fast, you know what I mean? And so I hear there's this Jack Hannack guy that he's moving some of the refugees here, and has been in the military and all this stuff. And all I can imagine in my head is that there's like this 40-some-year-old guy who's been in the military all this time, right? And I don't ask anybody about it. I just hear it, right? And anyway, and it's like a couple, 2-3 years later that I actually get to meet you, and I'm like, this is no 40-year-old guy, right? like this is crazy. And anyway, yeah, I can still just, because I had a picture, an image of you in my head as like this older guy. I'm like, I'm gonna have to meet this older guy. I bet this is crazy. It was just your leap of faith, and all of that was just really, as I've gotten to know you and met you, I was just like, all right, this is God's doing some amazing things in your life. And
100%. In all of our lives.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, just in this community.
So they kind of were raising themselves, living with, they had the older brother helping them, or were the parents?
They were here with their parents.
Oh, okay.
Phenomenal people, just all of them. Their mom and dad did not assimilate super fast, have not learned English. It was very just challenging for them. They had never received education in Afghanistan. She had never picked up a pencil before coming here.
Isn't that crazy?
It just was a huge feat. So I moved them up here. I returned to Oklahoma, wrapped up the court martial, went almost all the way through UPT. I'm in UPT. They had been living here for a year. But I was still just facilitating everything. I mean, the school would call me with everything. Everyone wanted to put them in sports, which was great, but then it's coordinating rides several nights a week, and I'm in pilot training.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so stressful. It was like I would
Baseball
be on base
gloves.
for 12 hours, and then I'm at home, and I would have messages and texts, and so-and-so boy had this happen at school, and they don't speak any English. So then I'm getting the boys on the phone, like translating. It was just a lot of coordination, a lot of logistics, and mom and dad weren't learning English. I'm just like, where do we go from this? And so initially it was, I just need to get them out of the slums of Houston, and I know Spring Valley would be safe. And it's like, let's just get them somewhere safe. But as this year progressed and I was returning home, several times that summer, I just got very close with the boys, and, one thing kind of led to the next. And I found like, I can't do this. I'm kind of putting half effort into a Air Force career, a career that you cannot do halfway. I mean, being a pilot, and I'm half raising these 5 boys from the other side of the country. And so I just pitched to their parents, what do you want? And, she had talked, she wanted to go back to Afghanistan. They have 4 other children there and 6 grandchildren, who that situation has not improved, as you know, in that part of the world. But the boys are thriving here in town. And so it's like, what's the solution here? And I'm just invested, and ultimately, and prayed about it, went to the chapel on base. And the thing where we really hit was we were also in the immigration process through all this. So these people were basically given 2-year work visas when they arrived, and they were given Social Security cards. So they were lawful permanent residents, thank you, as long as they kept a status. Yeah. So they were required to file for asylum or a special immigrant visa, and then get a green card. Well, that's a huge process to be asking these people. I don't know how other families are doing it, by the way. I have no idea. So they're in that process, and so their asylum interview is scheduled in Chicago, and I'm in pilot training, and so I can't take leave. So I got Alex and Bobby on the phone, my 2 buddies, and just like, what do I do? Genuinely was calling them. It was like several weeks out from the interview. And both of them, by the end of the phone call, they're like, we'll take them. I'm like, no way. I'm like, we're talking like, this is 2 overnights. You're driving them. They don't speak English, and they had met the family. Yeah. But like, those are real friends right there. Yeah. You know? And so they took the family, and that was me. So here I am flying in Oklahoma, and I had done this thing. I'd moved this family up here, and I'd gotten so invested, and I'm running it, and I'm all starting to be, this doesn't make sense. And so that's when it finally hit me. I'm like, it's got to be one or the other. And yeah, their parents asked me to do this. And my last flight was a formation flight. So you're flying like two airplanes together. And it was actually with my, my commander, I guess, my flight commander. And I remember landing on that flight. It was my 4th formation flight, and shutting down the aircraft and stepping out. I'm unstrapping, stepping out, and the weather was terrible. And I just had this overwhelming feeling like that was my last flight.
Really?
It was a moment like a year prior when I had made the decision to move the family.
Yeah.
And I had struggled for weeks up to that point of like, how am I going to keep balancing this, being in the Air Force and this family and whatever. And it was just this overwhelming feeling of like, you know what you need to do. It was like God being like, you did it. Like you got to Oklahoma, you were a pilot, you had this chapter of your life. You need to go be with these boys. If their parents are going to bless that. And the next day we were down. We didn't fly. It was a weather day. Went to the chapel and prayed. The following Monday, I sat down with the new first sergeant, a lot of first sergeants. And I'm like, I think this is it. Like, I think I'm stepping away from this. So.
Which had to be kind of scary in itself because of income and all of that stuff as well, like career.
Oh, yeah. So I very, very naively, when I made the decision to buy this house, I had heard about the VA loan, 0% down payment.
Yeah.
So being very candid, I had, I think, $30,000 saved up at that point. I didn't have college debt because of the military, which is great. Huge blessing. And I thought $30,000, I can buy this house. I have closing costs.
Yeah.
And then I need to buy them a vehicle. I need to buy them some furniture, whatever. I have all the money. And I had told God, I'm like, the money I have, well, then I had to make a down payment on this house, which was $20,000.
Yeah.
And so I was tapped out when I moved them. And so over the course of the year, I had gained some more money. But no, when I stepped away from the Air Force, it was pinch and pennies. And then I separated December of 23, and I didn't start my current job, my corporate job, until May 1st. So I had 4 months of being unemployed, stepping into the role of raising 5 boys. I mean, the grocery bill is insane. I mean, all of it. I mean, it was insane. And again, totally just trusting God. And people just would provide. I mean, we still to this day, I put shoes on the boys' feet, but all their other clothes, basically, maybe with the exception of some sports clothes, that they need for sports, people donate to us. I mean, it's families who are outgrowing it. It's insane.
Sometimes, I think it's in James where they talk about childlike faith. I think, there's a blessing to being young and naive.
It's correct.
And as you get more stable and you get some comforts and you get some things, I mean, to just think of that at my age and to even take that step, let alone, 25 years old, 24, 25 years old.
Correct.
But I think that's what he's calling us to do as 30s, in your 30s, 40s, 50s, right? Childlike faith, right? To me, that's what that's the underlying meaning of that phrase, in my opinion. And
I fit the bill on that.
Yeah. which is impressive,
and still am. I mean, I'm learning
every day. Me too.
Well, hence why we're here.
Yeah.
So.
But so much want to control everything too. And I mean, that's impressive to have. I mean, 30,000 at that age, young 20s.
Yeah. That's very.
I was a frugal college.
Well, yeah, you just told us you were only 160 pounds. You didn't eat.
That's true. No, that's very fair.
No, I'm just.
I did not have the behavior patterns at that point to manage.
Yeah.
No,
$1,000.
But that whole, because you guys speak finances on the podcast here. When I found out I had to make that down payment, that hit like a truck. Yeah. I'm like, whoa, that blows it. I had committed to the family at that point, hadn't told people up here though that I was doing this. I'm like, I'm going to basically get to the point where I'm like closing on this house before I tell anyone. And I slowly just started to tell close people on my network. And my grandma, the first phone call with her, she's like, oh, you're buying a house. You have this family. She's like, well, what are you going to do about furniture? I'm like, well, we're just going to, bring what we can from their apartment. I'm going to get a U-Haul and I'm just going to buy the rest. I'm going to Facebook Marketplace it. She's like, I've got it. I'll handle it.
Oh, cool.
She didn't just handle it. She made that a home for the boys. I mean, and she recruited a lot of people in our network, which just people put in. She got the track team at the high school they had a moving day. Like their practice was to drive to various people in town, couches and beds, and they set up the track team the night before these boys. And I'm sure those high school kids, who most of them are graduated by now because it's 4 years ago, they're like, what are we doing? You hear about these Afghan boys. But then a year later, my boy Sharohan and Deuce are like, they're on that track team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, we furnish it. It's just things like that. And then my parents, they actually bought the vehicle for the family.
Super cool.
Which that's thousands of dollars that I didn't have to work. Because they needed living in this town to get groceries or anything, you need a vehicle. So people were just checking boxes off that I'm like, God, how is this going to work? How is this going to work? And he just
found ways to provide
stuff off my plate. Yeah.
It's like the bread and the fish, right? In the Bible. And,
and
what I love is that the disciples were like, maybe they'd be like an established 40-year-old person. Like, well, how are we going to feed these people? They know it would take a year's wages to feed all these people. Like they're counting the cost. Like, how would I do that? How would I provide for that? And the young boy's like, well, I got this fish. I got this bread. Let's God do the multiplication. Yeah. And that's your story right there.
Well, that's where how you were saying that, I just always have had, I might've said it on here. I've got this image in my head that like think God says that, you have a plate and as you're diligent, it'll expand your plate. Well, in my mind, you start at like the top of the plate, right? And you just go around this plate and the plate gets a little bit bigger. Cause the fact is still, he's done all these amazing things. And I swear to goodness, you watch him in your life, give you fish and bread, and then you get back around to this next scary thing that you got to take this leap, and you're scared to take the leap, and you forgot. It's like you forgot that he provided.
You start thinking you have to do the multiplication. It's like, no, I never asked you for that. Just bring me what I've given you. Yeah. Okay, you got your 30,000. You've been a good steward, right? You're a natural leader. You care for people. You do that thing at the donut shop. Like that just shows like you're just looking out for people, and you're thinking what they need.
Yeah,
natural person for him to choose to take care of these boys.
And so you choose to leave the military and you're making that decision, and you said it was 4 months or so. You get up here and it was like 4 months before you started work. But even at this point, the boys weren't adopted or any.
No, I had guardianship of them. Things were really difficult because I was doing a lot of their immigration process, but all their medical appointments. When I was up here, I was very strategic with scheduling and begging Mayo Clinic to like, can we do 2 in 1 appointment slot? Like it's the exact same appointment. They need these vaccines. Yeah. Because that's not normal. But to give consent for things and with Deuce Muhammad, his eye surgery. I mean, there's been several small procedures for the boys. That you need to consent, right? And so we did guardianship right away. So I had full care and custody over the boys initially. And then I started the adoption process because it is a process, and we basically checked all the boxes I needed to do, but then we got their green cards first because they were all on one basically application. So it's just easier. And then we finalized the adoption after, and they got their citizenship.
And were the parents still here then? Or
yes.
So you're just living with the whole family?
Oh no. The parents had an apartment.
Oh, okay. In Spring Valley or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And so they're in an apartment, which is great. The boys will go over there for dinner and see mom and dad, which is awesome.
And how did that work? Like you adopting the boys, even though their parents are here?
There's a lot of growing pains, as you can imagine, with that. But I have always been aligned with their parents, like on everything, which is great. We always agree. I've never had issues with them, right? They just have completely trusted me and put their faith in me, which is a blessing. Their one big thing is the boys have to stay Muslim, which I respect. They have to practice their Islamic faith. So we pray, they pray 5 times a day. I make sure that happens as best as I can. We do Ramadan. I did Ramadan with them. We celebrate Eid. that was their one stipulation. And we sat down, we went through everything. I said, here's what I am providing for your boys. It's, they'll be able to do athletics. And I said, their biggest thing is, a lot of refugee people come here and they're like, they immediately want to get like their high school and even their middle school kids, like working a job and bringing in money and whatever. I'm like, let these boys be kids, let them be boys, let them learn American culture and let them have a childhood. And I promise you when they're 18, they will be here compared to what their peer refugees will be because they are Americanized boys now. Hanging out with your kids, you know what I mean? They just know how the world functions now. And that was kind of my pitch. Like, this is what I can offer.
Well, and I think you just explained a wonderful example. And I frankly, I think a lot of Christians fail at this personally. You're walking alongside them. So what if they're, Muslim? Yeah, in faith. But you're walking alongside. You have it doesn't necessarily mean you're bending from your beliefs. No. But it doesn't mean you can't love somebody else. It doesn't mean you can't go meet the woman at the well.
Correct.
It doesn't mean you can't, Jesus says, the adulterous woman, those who sin cast the first stone. Where was Jesus? He wasn't in some high and mighty altar. He was just walking alongside the regular people, right? His disciples were fishermen. Have you ever been on a fishing boat? The language isn't the best language. You know what I mean? Go sit in a mechanic shop, right? The language ain't the best, right? So, it's not about where they start or where we start, but it's about where we end. And frankly, to give that kind of space and to still have that kind of love for our fellow neighbor, right? Love God, love your neighbor, right? Like, as far as the commandments, I mean, I think you're just showing that beautifully. And I think we too often trip over a lot of legalistic stuff.
Or we kind of separate ourselves as they're an enemy because they don't agree with my religion and I can't do life with them. And I know you made mac and cheese for our family. So I think you were celebrating Lent and they were celebrating Ramadan. Did I get that right? And so it was great way for you to just say, like, look, this is how we do it in our faith, just like you do it in your faith. Like, but we are looking out for our community that's looked out after us. And we're paying it back. I mean, it's really awesome to see.
And the thing is what I feel like we have to remember and realize is so that, this is, whether it's somebody struggling with alcoholism or drugs or financials or whatever the case, there's anybody that, I mean, frankly, we all know how Christmas can be with the family, right? We all got some stuff going on. And as you walk alongside those people, it's kind of that healthy boundaries are okay. It doesn't mean you can't love somebody. It doesn't mean that you need to be prideful or lose humility or any of those things, and I think so often, we can just get wrapped up in that. So I just think that's a beautiful.
I think some of that legalism and things come from insecurity in people themselves. They have to justify, or it comes across as defensiveness that you need to agree with me because I'm not so sure of what I'm doing anyway.
Right.
And so it's like a justification process. But if you can be so strong in what your faith is and what you believe and you've done the work, it's your actions that are going to prove that.
More's caught than taught, right?
Jesus
just
knew
keep
the
leading.
Heavenly Father. He came from heaven. So he was pretty secure where he was at.
Yes.
And so for him to walk with the disciples, or any, and even the sinners, even the publicans and sinners, he knew it wasn't their works that were going to save them. He knew what he was going to do for them. And, so if we can do that and just walk with each individual where they're at, they'll come. Yeah.
And he was meeting with tax collectors. Right. He was getting criticized by the religious people for that. Yeah. He had a zealot that wanted to overthrow the government. And then he had a guy that used to be a tax collector working for the government, both his disciples,
And as you're walking through this, it doesn't mean you won't be tested. He says you won't be tempted. The evil one will do the tempting. Jesus, 40 days and 40 nights without food, and the evil one was tempting him. And he had a choice, right? Yeah. I think I said it the other day, eat the apple or don't eat the apple. You know what I mean? So, he had a choice. And in those moments, as you're being tested, as you're walking alongside and as you're having these boundaries, like, how are you going to react to the situation? Are you going to react by the fruits of the Spirit? or are you going to react by the evil one or by fleshly desires, right? It's that simple. And so even though you're walking alongside, it just give people space, you know what I mean? And then continue to be who you are. So anyway, that's just really neat. I just wanted to give a call out to that. Yeah, really neat. So, and the boys are a blessing to our community. I mean, they're friends with all of our kids, and you know, it's been fun to get to watch them especially when they first come in. They couldn't speak English, and then knowing you're like trying to teach them how to catch a pop fly or you take a grounder or what is a baseball, you know what I mean? But what was really neat is to watch these young men who have come out of a difficult situation, just like they're joyful and they're trying, and man, they had a grit. They have a grit about them that, frankly, a lot of our kids don't. And it's a joy to watch because
inspiring.
It really is inspiring, you know, and which is going to be a wonderful. They're going to be able to share this one day, you know, and be an impact in the future, right?
Yeah.
The stuff will rust and wither, but these boys will be able to be impactful for the world.
You can see it, like. I mean, kids are kids. Like, kids are innocent, man. And
doesn't matter what part of the world they come from. Yeah.
But you can also see it too. You know, I've been in Baghdad, Iraq, and you look at some of those kids there, and when you look in their eyes, like they have an understanding of what discomfort and pain and discipline is that a lot of our kids don't ever understand.
Sure.
And you know, my heart would break for them being over there. And then there is a difference with your boys when you get around them, that they just have an understanding that a lot of American kids don't.
They're emotionally intelligent. I'll give them that.
And Jake was talking about the grit. Like,
they have some grit, social dexterity, I think, too. I mean, what works with these boys is you can teach them English, you can teach them math, you can teach them how to play baseball. I feel it's pretty tough to like instill a confidence in a kid like that. That's a huge problem. Yeah. These boys all showed up. They had the confidence. Yeah. They all marched into that school their first week, couldn't speak English. It's walking through like, here's, walking into the cafeteria, walking into the bathroom, walking in, like everything, everything was brand new for them. But I have to give them credit. I mean, sit here and give them credit. It's been 4 years and, a lot of people, everyone in Spring Valley knows them. But other people in my life my most recent one is my girlfriend came back. She lives in New York. I've told you about her. Yeah. She's incredible. And she came to meet the boys the first time, and it was just, it's hard to set the stage of like what to expect. But I think a lot of people think like, how am I going to communicate with that? Like, okay, we're past that. Like they are conversational in English. They maybe can't read and write perfectly yet, but they're conversational, and they're like any other teenage kids, Like they're going to joke around. It's going to be a little inappropriate, but, that was very fun. It was very, awesome.
That had to be a heck of a one-liner, when you meet her, like, hey lady, I got, I got five boys.
And that's why it works with her. She, one of her best friends is married to my cousin. And so we met at their wedding. So she knew of me via them before we.
So she knew that they were in your life beforehand.
Correct. That's correct. And I figured whoever I end up with, it's going to be somebody, it's going to be through mutual connections. Yeah. Because just to jump on a dating app and say, I got 5 Afghan kids, a little different. But no,
I don't think I could, like, if
she's very patient with this whole situation.
That's so cool.
It's been fun.
It's
been
awesome.
Crazy.
If I was in a dating situation, I was to date my wife now, and she knew that we were going to have the kids we have, I don't know if she'd go on a date.
Right. I think a lot of people would say that.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, just kudos to her. And I'm sure
100%.
I haven't got to meet her yet. But
Yeah.
I'm sure she's awesome.
You will. Yeah. I'm excited for that.
For sure.
Cool.
That was a little nudge.
Yeah.
Haven't gotten to meet her.
Oh, yeah. You will. Soon enough.
There is something I just want to pan back a little bit. Like watching your boys in sports and wrestling, like there is not an off switch. Like there is just not like quitting or, just being done emotionally or physically on the mat is not an option for them. My son wrestles too. And I can see when he's then like, okay, he just mentally got beat. I have that in my life. And I just watching your boys, it's like, they're all out. They're all in. I mean, no matter what they do, like they have experienced some things. And I think that's what hard times do to an individual.
Mhm.
There's a character building there and a realization there when they've met or they've seen limits that I don't know if humans in America will ever see.
Sure.
They've been able to go through some things and prove to themselves some things, and it's evident in how they are as individuals today. It's just pretty awesome to watch.
I feel growing up here in Spring Valley and having parents and grandparents and everyone who came through and knowing kind of a lot of the teachers and people at school, these boys showed up, they have something to prove too.
Yeah.
They're like, I might be the one dark skinned kid on your team, but I'm going to work for it. And they have, they've built a reputation for themselves, which has been very fun to watch.
Yeah. It's awesome.
You ultimately, with the Foundry and all that stuff, but you ultimately, you go from architecture to down to the military. So you're being used, and then you're going through all that and you're being broken, and you've come back and during that broken phase, you're being sharpened, your faith is being sharpened. Like as you're back here and as you're getting to sit in this and get more comfortable with what life is now and everything you've come through, like what are the qualities? What are your takeaways since being back in your faith and your,
takeaways in my faith?
Faith, fitness, fine. Like
all
like where are you sitting at now?
Well, so I want to say too, the F's that you guys have, that idea was actually my uncle. I was working for him that summer I had between college and in the Air Force, and he uses the 7 F's: faith, fitness, family, finance. Then he does friends, footprint, fluff.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
Footprint, right,
Yeah.
is a big one, and friends, and then fluff is everything else. The fun. And I think about that daily. And so when you guys start doing that for your podcast, I was like, whoa, this is because I just in my life I code everything. I just like to have like a code for how I live my life. And how he pitched it, he said he pitched it to my cousins, his kids. He said you have 168 hours, and he gave them each 168 poker chips and said, put the number of poker chips or how many hours you spend in each of these 7 categories, basically. And, they got to the end of the exercise, and I don't know how old they were, but, the faith had just like a few poker chips in it. Mm-hmm. It's like, what is that? This is who you are. This is the person you are. But I just like that. I like these F's because it's every single minute of your day can fit into one of the categories. And like you said, fitness is health. Yeah. It's sleeping, it's eating, it's everything. So takeaways in my faith, I think moving back to Spring Valley, priorities has been huge. I think going through college and then being in Oklahoma for several years, and this whole situation is a good example of how being young and naive and just thinking you can kind of do it all. And I think even when I moved back here, it was like, I can do it all. I'm going to do another career change, go a career change into corporate America and raise these 5 boys. I bought a house that I renovated on top of that and make all their sporting events. And I was just burning myself out, at that point. And so really for the first time ever a year ago, I finished that project house, and I'm just going to slow down and enjoy life. Yeah. I'm going to just invest more in the boys and be all these things you guys talk about. There's so much I relate to as you guys as dads, as fathers. In your patience, you're the biggest story, and I think I texted you this of your furniture story. If people watch that episode, I have so many moments like that where it's just, why am I rushing through things? But it's quality over quantity. It's you know what I mean. God wants you to fill your plate, as you're saying, or take things on and be his hands and feet, but you shouldn't be doing things halfway. And that's been a huge lesson for me. Is you have to know when to say no, and you have to know what's important and what needs to be priority. So
as you were saying that, it reminded me, I was listening to the Unashamed podcast earlier this week, and they were talking about how people so through you, all things are possible. And there's this big movement, this kind of this I am Well, you know, like you said, like I can do all this stuff I can do. And that's, but do realize everybody listening, you're capable to do everything. God, Jesus, in fact, Jesus says that he says to his disciples, you'll do greater things than I did. But it's not because it's because the Holy Spirit invoked in you can do amazing things. And I think that's where, that's when that control starts to creep in. When all of a sudden you're trying to force it, I can get all this done, versus letting him get you through the run. Let him take care of where the car and the furniture and how that's going to come, right? Let him, where's your spouse going to come from, you know, which is not easy.
Yeah.
And it can be so easy to start saying I versus he and me, or, you know.
As you walk through what you define as your plan to achieve these things, those things are going to change. And that's where I get so frustrated.
Yeah.
Is like, okay, I didn't see this coming. Now we have to take this detour is what I think it is. And it's not. That's actually the way we should be going. But I get frustrated in that. So to just walk through your story and the experiences that you went through, like those were that would have taken a lot of, the mental challenge of going through the court-martial process, the emotional challenge of all that, like that would have taken a lot of self-control and giving over to him, and then going through, like, there's a lot of unknown things. And then even moving a family back to a small little town, like there's a ton of unknown. So it was a process that was shaping.
The word risk
comes
to my mind.
Yeah.
And for you guys, I mean, how does risk play into that? Here you two are with very successful businesses and you're balancing with life. That doesn't come without taking some risks.
But there's a whole bunch of risk management,
risk management, right? Yeah. Calculated,
or even calculated. That's what that's a thing I struggle with. Is like, okay, yeah, this is going to be a risk, but man, I want to control it. I want to minimize at all costs the risk.
Sure.
Or you take a risk and then you get comfortable and you stay in that spot. Yep. You know, you won the court-martial. Now you can proceed with life as you had planned.
Sure.
But then you're really listening to God in that car trip back from Houston, right?
Yes.
And you're like, if this is where God's taken me, like I have to adjust the plan. And like, can we stay that malleable as we get older? Because like you said, it's easier to take risks for whatever reason when you're younger. There's less at stake, but can you keep that heart?
Well, and the thing is with risk is it's just with how to say this well, with something acidic, right? You need a substance to counteract that, right? And so with risk, it just intentionality. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just be intentional in your next step, right? People scale rock cliffs, and most of them survive, right? The majority survive because they're intentional with where they're placing their next hand. It's a super risky gig, right? But they're not willy-nilly putting their hand at the next, but they're not also not moving forward. They're not climbing. They're not climbing, right? And so what I love in your example is, you took a risk to switch your career, ran into a roadblock, but then you also then with a lot, asking wisdom in many, right? You ask people around you. You took another risk with the boys and coming back here and changing your career, and to get gun shy, that's not it's not wise to get gun shy either, or complacent, right? Yeah. That if you're not moving forward, people think of it wrong. I think they say if you're not growing, you're dying. Well, a lot of times businessmen and women will take that and they just think they're just growing their business, growing their gross profit wise, right? Mm-hmm. Like, well, last time I checked, he said all that stuff was fleeting anyway, and that will grow if your finances will naturally grow. But there's so many other ways to grow. Being intentional with your boys, and in the season you're in, there's growth in the fact that you were aware that all of a sudden I was trying to do all this stuff, and I need to let some of this go and be more present, right?
Yeah. There's the risk always comes back on. it's vanity. I mean, what is risk?
Right.
It actually isn't risky. I promise we're all going to make it to the end of our life.
Yeah.
That will happen.
Yeah.
So what you're going to lose is probably vanity, but it's a real thing. Like
It is.
I don't say that to diminish it. I have fear and distrust and lack of faith. Like those things I have in my life
every day.
But if you can pan back and see with an eternal vision, like what is in it for us? God never says you should build a business and try to make a name for yourself. Yeah. He never says it's going to be easy. Yeah. He already says he has given his life for us. Go and be disciples of all nations. It's the eternal vision that's, and so with that, there isn't a lot of risk. When we're going to fail, like we're going to start some things and we're going to fail at some things. That's going to shape us for who we are.
And I was just reading something about Jeff Bezos. He was a pretty wealthy trader, I guess, on Wall Street, making a lot of money with his firm. But he started making decisions as 80-year-old Jeff Bezos, looking back on his life and say, would I regret this? Like he saw how the internet was growing. He saw what he could do. And even when I was in college, they're like, look at Amazon. They haven't made a profit yet. I mean, that's what my professor would tell us, but he had a long vision and he was always thinking from things from an 80-year-old's perspective. So like, would I rather raise these boys or have a career in the Air Force?
Correct.
Like, and looking back at our own lives, that just helps put the risk in perspective.
Yeah.
And a person's pride could have had you choose the Air Force, and there may not have been anything wrong with it given a different circumstance. But the cool thing is the impact that it's had on all of us, and you being back here and the decision to do that. And with mistakes, there is teaching. With success, there is teaching. He's working in both of those things. And so if you're doing the stuff with the best of intentions, right, people are learning around you as well, right? And learning around each and every one of us sitting in this room and whoever's listening. And so we can get so hung up, like you said, on like the pride or the ego. Like if it doesn't turn out just perfect, we get so hung up, like when you're going into the dealing with the legal stuff, you know what I mean? Like, what are people going to think? What's going to go on, and it can be scary to continue to take those leaps of faith, but in reality, it's the only thing that changes the world, Do
you have any regrets looking back? Like if any decisions you made through that process, like you even like the motion or whatever, the push.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like that wasn't you had to go through all that?
That's a really challenging question that I still ponder. That whole idea of, so like these big stepping stones or these big decisions, I would say I don't have regret. I have regret with little instances of how I treated people or how I approach things. But if the big things, somebody very close to me said, well, if you wouldn't have gone through the court martial, you wouldn't have done this with the boys, right? Yeah. It's like, yes and no. Maybe I would have, by the way, because I was connected with them. But it's also, I feel like that was a moment in my life where it's like I was served lemons and I made lemonade out of it. Like I'm sitting on this court martial, I went and did this thing. And this whole idea of like God has a plan for your life and free will, like that whole topic, that may be a great idea for you guys to sit down and do a podcast on that. But so no, I think I have to sit here and say, no, I don't have any regrets, but yes, if I could go back to that moment and not have done that. Right. I mean, to be a Christian is to say, I wish I wouldn't have done that. That was not a good thing to do. But again, the fruits that have come from that, I'm sitting here saying, no, it's happened. It's happened how it should have happened. Right. It's complicated. Yeah. It's complex.
Well, I think the key is to not necessarily acknowledge that you wouldn't change something, but the key is to allow it to, for lack of a better term, allow it to build a callus that gives you resolve. When you were saying that, I was just thinking Eli has been going out and swinging a baseball bat and it is blistering his hands. And he's like, Dad, when will these go away? I was like, well, I told him, I said, just keep out, going out there and swinging. but let it heal up. And he's like, well, how's it going to come back thicker? And I was like, your body just naturally knows. It'll just grow that skin back thicker. And frankly, he'll just grow deeper. God will just continue to grow if you let him. Sure. He'll grow in your heart in those scenarios. It's not that, you don't want to hit that roadblock every time full speed, but as long as you learn from the obstacles, I think that's the key, whether it's a win or a struggle or a failure.
One in that situation too, with that enlisted airman, you can imagine now, having had that one situation, how much different my actions are now when I'm around people. Pastor Todd and I brought this up to him recently. So he was 23 or 24. He graduated college. He came back. He was the youth pastor before he was the pastor of the church. And my first year going to the Wednesday night youth group is the year he took over. He was actually my basketball coach.
Yeah, that's
too.
cool.
And he worked with my dad when he was in high school. A lot of connections with him. Really great guy. And he said, or what I told him, I said, I remember thinking, he's so old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or he's so
Todd
mature.
is
Like
old.
he's got it all figured
old.
out. He's got it all figured out at 24 years old. He was just getting married and having kids and had a job and being middle school, high school me. And he was my coach. But now I'm sitting here at 28 being like, he was juggling all that and did all of that. He's younger than what I am now, you know?
Yeah.
But I tie that back to, this enlisted airman and doing that action, their regret and tying all that in. And it's like, oh, I'm no longer that high school kid. I think there's this chapter, this time in your 20s where you have to think about that. It's like, oh no, I'm an adult now.
Yeah.
And to think about that with my boys and everything. So
there's a book called Man's Search for Meaning,
yes.
and by Dr. Viktor Frankl.
He was
World War II.
Yeah.
He was in the Holocaust.
Jewish,
and, Jewish. And he says it a little differently, but basically, if you have purpose is what he discovered on how he feels like he got through that, and obviously his faith, but in that, but that he also kind of talks about how that God will give you the grace necessary, or he'll give you the strength necessary to get through the trial or the success in that time. So often we think about and cast out into the future of what it might be, and we let all this fear build up instead of just trusting that when we need him, when we're facing whatever obstacle we're facing, he'll give us what we need to get through that, right?
And I think there's a saying I don't like, and it's often tossed around in Christian groups, is God will never give you anything you can't handle.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I think God will give you enough to handle to realize that you don't have this yourself.
Yeah. I love the way you interpret it. Yeah.
And that's what God wants to know, that we have a need.
Yeah.
And when we can give it to him, that's when the victory's won. And it's just, the amount of times as you're telling your story when I'm like, okay, God's hand's there. God's hand. Like,
yeah.
Jack Hannack didn't make that happen. God made it happen, but he used Jack Hannack to make it happen.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. That's
we're just vessels.
right.
Yeah. We are
carry
just
out
vessels.
Yeah.
Yep. And so he's, be a lampstand. That's what he talks about,
Sure.
Be a lighthouse. And so, Jack, we really enjoyed your time. We enjoyed you being our guinea pig.
Yeah. And I'm sure you'll be back on.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back
on. Dive into. I think we're all aware, the fruit of the Foundry, that's why we call it a cycle. It's because it's a repeating thing that's going to happen over and over. And it's awesome to see you now, and having the boys and they're involved with every sport, and you just look like you're on it right now, which is super cool.
Yeah.
Enjoy having you with us in the mornings and just being a brother that we walk through life with. But there's going to be more, like all of us, battles and struggles as we go through the next adventure. But it's super cool to see where you have come from, the things that you've done, the difference you're making in people's lives. Across the world at this point.
Yeah.
So it's been super awesome to have you on. And is there any closing thoughts that you have, or any
been an
points
honor
you want to make?
to be here sitting with you guys, and wish you the best of luck as
Thanks.
you go forward.
Yeah.
I look forward to continuing to watch and listen.
Yeah, like Ald said, we'll have to have you back on. There's like 100 other questions I've got here that I was looking through and marked up. You did a great job being, we've got this intake form. If anybody's interested in being on the show, jump online there and you can fill out the intake form. We'd love to just, regular people, regular Joes that are going through the Foundry.
I chuckled right away. Like I've told John this 100 times. Like I would never fill that intake form out if I was coming on the disc assessment. I mean, I'm a high.
You got to be a little vulnerable. You guys ask good questions on it. That's what was fun about.
But I read this the first time. I'm like, this is the kind of guy that I want flying a fighter pilot for the US. Like, just the diligence and the detail is just awesome. Yeah.
But it was fun to fill out because it was very reminiscent of
Yeah.
the past really 10 years, especially the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And everything that's gone on. So thank you
Yeah,
for bringing that all back.
Yeah,
And I think maybe to wrap it up, one thing we could bring up is you have your testimony sum up
Yeah.
in this form, and so maybe you just want to just kind of say, with all you've gone through in the podcast, talking about your life, like what have you learned this far at age 28, raising 5 boys, and the decisions you've made?
Oof. That's a big question, John.
But you answered it here well. So
can you give me a little hint of how did I answer that? I was obviously reflecting on it. You were trying to team me up. There were a lot of questions on this form.
The one thing that stuck out to me on
I remember it. Yeah, go ahead.
Faith was, you said my faith was shifting from something I understand to something I rely on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we
just
touched on.
Yeah. That was good. I've gone from someone who was thinking about the kind of life I wanted to someone who is actively building it through responsibility, discipline, and trust in God. I think that's very fair.
Yeah, and I think the responsibility, discipline, and trust in God is just evident. Even before it came to the boys, before it came to the court martial, it was evident you were already doing that.
Sure.
And God has used your faithfulness to do more.
Yep.
Well, and I was so blessed to grow up, and this is kind of coming full circle to the beginning of growing up in a place where, in a family, in a community where there was a focus on faith and a lot of training. I grew up in the Catholic Church. It was catechism every week. It was youth group then through middle school and high school is on top of that with Pastor Todd. And you're learning all these things and then continuing that in college. But at some point you have to apply. You have to take action. And that ties into the risk piece too. Eventually you just have to jump in and trust, and you have to go forward with it and do it. So
realize that you have a need and give it to him, and that's when his work is done.
Right. Well, and I think, we talk about people's journeys too earlier, but I think Paul describes it so well, so often. But it's a long race, and you need a lot of endurance. And that's what fellowship is all about, right? Because, frankly, a road has 2 ditches down both sides. And I'm pretty good, especially if it rains, to heading straight for the ditch.
For every mile of road, there's 2 miles a day.
Yeah, exactly. And you need a band of brothers or a band of women around you, for you ladies out there that help you walk the line. Because you will stray. They're just, I'm not saying that it's okay and condoning it.
Right.
I'm saying that's what the whole Old Testament is about, and that's one of the reasons why you can trust the Bible, in my opinion. If you're Peter, right, or you're Mark, Matthew, Luke, or John, do you really want it in there? All the times that they talked about how they made mistakes, right, and that they failed. Or that they forgot about all the amazing things that Jesus did. You really does Peter really want his name in there that he denied Christ 3 times?
Peter gets a bad rap.
Yeah.
He's the one who had the guts to go to that courtyard, that night. And yes, he denied Jesus 3 times, but he is the one. I just watched The Passion a few nights ago because it's Holy Week right now. And haven't seen in 10 years. Peter gets a bad.
He does.
Yeah.
But he's so relatable.
But then he's
very relatable.
Well, that's why he made him the cornerstone, though, right?
Correct.
Like that's the whole reason for him, and that's why. And they were just common men, right?
The childlike faith.
Yes.
You constantly are getting humbled.
Yeah, you are, and their whole, And then the other thing is I've been hearing, I think Wes Huff and some of these guys. I'm sure this is where I've heard this, this they talk about like, and I think I just heard this on Unashamed, like. A lot of this got written in like 60 years after Jesus was crucified, and they Peter denies and some different stuff, and they kind of disperse or whatever. But you're telling me that it's not a true story, and they all decided to live lives that wound up making them lose their lives.
Right.
Like, why would you? And
they
their
lost their lives.
And
yes, and their
apostles'
wives.
deaths were-
I think it was it John's wife. One of them, I'd get that messed up. One of their wives was from the best they can tell, was tortured terribly. You'd have
I think that was Peter's wife.
might have been. You'd have to ask somebody way smarter
Yeah,
than me.
yeah.
I just have heard that, and in the. But yeah, and that's just where, to me, that there's just so much truth in it when you look at that, because especially when you've walked in this life for a while, we all know it's easy to veer off on that road.
Mm-hmm.
But they had the conviction in which they had, and the conviction in those stories, and so.
And life is hard, man. Like, I think about you sitting in that parking lot, like with that news. I mean, that's heavy, right? I've been in those situations in my own life where you're like, what? How did we get here?
That was a low point for sure.
Where do I go from here? I mean, especially with you wrap that with anything else. You wrap that with an addiction problem of any kind, and it can. That's where people's lives come to an end. And if there's anybody listening to this, I mean, just know that we've been there, and God is working. Like, sometimes we have to be broken. Well, I should say we have to be broken.
Yeah,
our human nature has got to come down in a way, and we got to come to a spot where we can give it to Christ. And, I don't know if that's what that was for you, but God has clearly done an amazing work in your life, and is still. And even for us, like, sometimes you say, honored to be on this podcast. Well, just know that it's people like you that inspire us on a daily basis. And all of them, all the guys that show up in our life on a daily basis, it's just as inspiring to us. Like, we're nothing without the people around us in the work that God's doing in their life.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole point of this is to show that a couple of idiots, you can put them in front of a mic, and everybody can realize that maybe they're a lot smarter than what they thought they were.
The guy I was at 20 did not have $30,000, was not walking with Christ. Like, it's just, it's.
And to share too that we all struggle with enoughness and trust.
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus came down here for, and that's what faith is, right? It's when you understand that he died for us and that we were enough, and that we can place our trust in him, right? And with each other, when you can have a relationship with your and fellowship with each other, and understand that you are enough, and that you can trust that relationship, and you can get vulnerable. That's what this stuff's all about, right? And because we all have our struggles, we all have our stories, and we just hope we can have a platform to share those. And so, Paul, do you want to kind of wrap us up here?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for coming on, Jack. Like, you're like I said, your story is inspiring to us. What you're doing is awesome.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Would you mind closing us in prayer? I know we did not prep you for that, but we like to close with a prayer.
Pulled that on somebody else.
Thanks, Jack.
Dear Lord, we just thank you for gathering us here this morning. We thank you, despite the rain and the freezing rain and the snow outside, the ice. Thank you for helping us just to get on top of the dam this morning, to run the dam mile. And we thank you for just surrounding us with people and putting us in a community that we do just have fellowship and brotherhood, and people that we can pour into, but also people that pour into us. And I thank you specifically for the gentleman sitting here and the other gentleman within our group, our Ruckin River group, that I just thank you as I have returned to Spring Valley here these past 2 years and have just been searching for fellowship. Just thank you for bringing that into my life. And I just pray for these relationships. I pray for everyone that is here listening today, that they can just find that in their lives, whatever corner of the earth they are in. We just ask that you bring people together. You continue to build men and women in faith, and just help us to carry out your good works. Let us be your hands and your feet. We pray specifically this weekend as we go into the end of Holy Week here, Holy Thursday today and Good Friday tomorrow. Help us just to remember the sacrifice that your son Jesus made for all of us. And we just thank you for providing us with the lives and the grace that you have in your love. We pray all of this in your name.
Amen.
Amen.
Man.
As we leave here, guys, we just pose the question, in how is the Foundry? How have you been used by Him? How have you been broken while in the Foundry? And what's sharpened you? Let's leave you with for this week. So, see you guys next week.